you can call our Listen line at 641-793-0191. That's a long-distance number, so you may incur charges. If not, listen as long as you want. 641-793-0191. The Free Talk Live Listen line, 641-793-0191.
You're 6 minutes away from a live episode of Free Talk Live. Listen live at freetalklive.com.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases, but officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. TikTok announced that it has established a majority American-owned joint venture to operate its U.S. business, allowing the company to avoid a ban over its Chinese ownership. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
TikTok says the majority American joint venture will implement strict safeguards for data protection, algorithm security, and content moderation for US users. According to reports, the agreement provides for American and global investors to hold 80.1% of the venture, while ByteDance will own 19.9%. 3 investors, Silver Lake, Oracle, and Abu Dhabi-based AI investment fund MGX, each hold 15% stakes. It comes after a law passed in 2024 requiring that the US version of the app be spun off from its parent company ByteDance or be banned in the United States. US President Donald Trump repeatedly delayed enforcement of the law as he pursued a deal to transfer control of the popular app to American ownership.
Donald Trump's bid to control the U.S. central bank looks set to be rejected by the Supreme Court. During arguments on Wednesday, justices from across the ideological spectrum appeared concerned that the president's efforts to fire one of the Federal Reserve's leaders could imperil its independence. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The justices questioned whether the unproven allegations against Lisa Cook that she engaged in mortgage fraud before taking office were serious enough to allow the president to fire her. It comes as the administration has escalated its attacks on the Fed in a bid to get it to lower interest rates, including launching a criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell over whether he lied to Congress about cost overruns related to the renovations of the Fed's headquarters. He's pushed back, saying the charges were politically motivated. The Supreme Court's ruling could determine whether the Fed will maintain its long history of political independence.
That was a look back at some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer.
In a competitive tech world, companies are always looking to the latest trend to keep their employees productive and happy at the office. But a new study suggests that employees are actually happiest when they're simply pretending to work from home. The study from tech and consulting giant IBM found employees felt overall more focused and content with their jobs when doing personal tasks like catching up on laundry or their favorite TV shows when they should be working.
I just make sure that I send some emails to my supervisor first thing in the morning so he thinks I'm up and working, but then I just go right back to bed.
I never have to deal with rush hour traffic or anything. I just walk across the room, sit down at my desk, and start browsing through my Twitter feed immediately.
The trend is making its way to the country's most influential tech companies like Google, where employees are encouraged to put in 12 empty hours of work a week from their homes. The study hasn't swayed every company, however. Yahoo CEO Marissa Mayer said in a statement, "At Yahoo, we prefer that our employees pretend to work side by side right here in our offices."
This is the Onion News Network.
Our Matrix server is about as free as internet chat can be. Join the existing rooms or create your own at chat.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. You can give us a call and get your thoughts and ideas on the air. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley O'Bill,
and Mr. Penguin.
Mr. Penguin, you were at the State House?
Yeah, Riley and I went up to we're One Granite Place, which is the temporary location, I guess, of where the State House or the House is being held. The Senate's still being held in the Senate building, but the House is being held somewhere else. And what did we go to see? It was
I didn't see anything for some reason, but we heard the session. We heard them discuss a piece of legislation that was put forth to create a committee on discussing whether New Hampshire, but looking at the ramifications if New Hampshire were to leave the United States.
Yeah, that's right. And the bill was specifically on creating, so we have to have a hearing on creating a study commission, basically, is what the bill would do. And it was quite interesting because it was it was like a back and forth between state reps and whether or not we should have a study commission. And it's like, well, all of these questions that you guys are asking are for the whole point of the study commission is for the study commission to come up with answers.
Oh yeah, and they brought up and they were bringing up things like, oh well, we gotta keep the United States, or we're swore an oath to the United States, or whatever.
Oh, that was funny.
The Constitution.
So I wanted to say, okay, so let me get this straight. So you're not going to represent the people that you've sworn to represent. You are going to represent people in Washington, D.C. Like, is that not traitorous? Like you're not supposed to be representing people outside New Hampshire. You're supposed to be representing people inside New Hampshire. But the reps, at least I would say probably maybe half of them seemed like they were opposed to representing people in New Hampshire. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, well, they can say things like that nowadays, and most people don't even pick up on that.
Well, that
anything out of the ordinary was said.
Do you remember how many days, Riley? Somebody was saying, trying to calculate the number of days that we say, or kids are forced basically to say the Pledge of Allegiance in public schools.
I don't remember, but it's like 14,000 days or something.
Right.
Like
So
that.
you think after 14,000 days, the brainwashing may have taken effect, and apparently
this is not a form of brainwashing. This is not a form of brainwashing. It actually is a form of brainwashing to recite this mantra to a piece of cloth every morning at school.
The issue this time around was the indivisible part, apparently, of the pledge. And it's like, okay. And then they were like,
countries come and go, ladies and gentlemen. They're going to divide. It's the natural state of things. We can't keep a country for eternity.
Yeah, that seems like a horrible thing to have put in the pledge.
Right. And
no, I mean, having a pledge in the first place is a bad idea, but to put that indivisible part in there.
Yeah. And one of the reps said something like, I take my pledge seriously or something. And it's just like, wow. Like, you understand that this has been changed. Like, it's not even like it's the same pledge. Like, they've changed the pledge over the years.
Yeah, and then they brought up, well, you swore an oath to uphold the United States Constitution. I wonder what it would be like if I decided to, run for office and promise my constituents that if you elect me, I will not uphold the United States Constitution.
Could you imagine if during the war with Britain for our U.S. independence, we had George Washington say, well, I will not fight, or I will not represent, Americans because it's illegal.
It goes
and that's
against
basically
the church.
Right.
Essentially.
Well,
You're
that
going against God, essentially, because it was the Church of England.
Illegal.
What's that?
It was illegal.
Well, right, and that's
against the crown.
Right, and that's like one of the points I brought up was like, okay, so like there's no constitution or authority that's higher than the people themselves in any given area, and we would recognize that for any. I didn't bring this up; somebody else did actually. This part of it, but in any other part of the world, if a population wanted to basically rise up and be self-governing, basically, we would support that, but not in the United States for some reason. It's this most insane logic of like, you have to swear your allegiance to DC, above and before the people that are electing you.
Well, that's just the story. People who actually would rise up and be their own rulers are not. That's not allowed. That's just what they say they will allow, but what really happens is a group can head up a strong arm government if they're approved by the the world trade by the big traders in the world markets.
Yeah, and some of the issues that were brought up last time they didn't bring up. Like, one of them was one of the issues that was brought up in prior. So we've had hearings. So we had a constitutional amendment that was voted on in New Hampshire as to whether or not to declare independence from the United States, and the whole House, 400 reps, voted on this. And I don't know if the Senate voted on it or not, but at least the House.
So. It doesn't. I don't think it did because it didn't pass the House.
Was it a vote to just
you might be
declare independence, or to allow the people to vote on it, or was it?
Yeah, it was probably to allow the people to vote on independence. It probably wasn't an outright declaration, but I'm not 100%. I think it was like to allow the people to vote on an outright declaration, basically something like that. But either way, the point is it didn't. So we've actually had a couple different. One was a bill and one was a constitutional amendment. The first one, I believe, was a constitutional amendment. The second one was a bill that would do similarly. But in any event, the first one I think got 13 reps that voted in favor, and then we roughly doubled the number of reps for the bill the next year.
Is that out of what's the number, like 200 something?
400 state reps in the House. Yeah, that's right. So it's now people
200 something is the majority.
You kind of have to keep things in context here. So the independence movement in New Hampshire is fairly young. It's not like Texas or some, I don't know what other independence movements are in the United States.
Calexa is one of them.
Yeah, that's one. But anyway, the point is,
Texas is possibly the oldest one.
Possibly, but they've never really
wanted to be part of all.
Yeah, Texas has never really gone anywhere. New Hampshire is probably one of the most successful independence movements in the United States, in that we actually have support in the state house. Texas doesn't really have support in the state house. They couldn't even get a single rep to put forth a bill or any kind of constitutional amendment.
Certainly, they couldn't show an increasing support.
Right. Whereas in New Hampshire, it took us about a decade to get even a single rep. Even though we have about 100 reps. Well, we didn't before, but we over the years we've built up the number of reps over the last 2 decades. And it basically took us 10 years before a single rep that supports independence was willing to put forth a bill or a constitutional amendment saying let's declare independence. And anyway, so we actually have accomplished a lot. So not only did we have actually one rep put forth a constitutional amendment the first time around, I don't know, was it 5 years ago maybe? At this point, there was actually 9. I think it started off at 9. We may have only had like 7 or 8 in the end that actually signed their name to it, but it doesn't really matter. The point is, we had about 13 reps the first time around who voted yes for independence, and then the second time around, I don't think we had anywhere near as many reps put forward the bill, but that doesn't really matter how many reps put forward the bill. But anyway, we had twice as many reps support or vote in favor of the bill on the second time around. So like you can see over the years, the support in New Hampshire for independence has been growing, and it's been growing at a pretty brisk pace. We got rid of Brody Deshay, I believe is his name, who was one of the biggest opponents of independence in New Hampshire, actually.
I remember that name from the last time around.
Yep.
That guy was ridiculous,
Yep.
right?
He was
the most
quite ridiculous.
nonsensical, like appeal to emotion types of things.
Oh yeah.
Appeal to authority, as I remember hearing about it.
This guy was a young Republican.
He was just, like saying things that were like
mainstream Republican.
I don't know if you've seen this film. It was made by the people who made Jones Plantation. It's called Barnum World, and they have this concept in it called Barnum statements, where it's just like anything that makes people excited about something, but it's totally nebulous and it could mean whatever you want. And if I remember, this Brody Deshay was using all kinds of Barnum statements, so to speak.
Well, anyway, Brody Deshay was voted out of office for his views on independence, and so he's no longer one of our state reps. Yeah, I mean, basically, we probably, I mean, from what I saw, I want to say that maybe about half that we still are a long ways from independence. I mean, obviously, just
definitely
based on the voting numbers, right, alone for the bill and the prior constitutional amendment, we're still a long ways from, declaring independence in New Hampshire. However, it's probably not as far off as people, think based on the numbers. Just because you kind of have to look at like the increasing support over the years. From
the numbers yesterday, though, like I felt like we needed a lot more support. And definitely we need the support.
For sure.
Well, yeah, but the idea is to get a growing interest.
Yes, and that's what we have.
Certainly going to have that. Whereas it, in the beginning you had the interest of 13 versus 380 something.
Interestingly, it came off to me as maybe we probably have to replace about half the reps. We might have to replace about half the reps in order to get something passed as a constitutional amendment.
And
so that would require 2/3.
Does look like that's
we are
well underway.
Yeah, we're still pretty far off, but it's definitely a good start.
Right now, we've got callers on the line, so we're going to go to the phones because that's what this show is about. This is Wireless Caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind? Hello, Wireless Caller.
Are you talking to me right now?
Yes, we are.
Oh, hey. Well, I was just calling in about the shooting today in Minneapolis, and it's just
You mean the insurrection?
A bigger sign. Say again?
You mean the insurrection?
What insurrection?
So there's an insurrection going on in Minneapolis right now.
Okay.
At least according to Trump, I think.
Oh.
He's preparing to send in the military. Is that correct, right?
I think this might be right. I have a story pulled up about it. I was going to get into it at some point tonight, but what do you know?
Yeah. What do you know about it? Wireless.
Oh, well, no, my thing is just about the shooting that occurred today. Kind of like the shooting that happened a couple weeks ago with the Galliner car. Because, I guess they're calling it an insurrection because of the extreme outburst of just people and inhibiting ICE agents, I guess. My whole take on the thing is in regard to the shooting, the specific shooting itself. I've seen the multiple angles. I'm a pretty straight shooter, objective type person. Most people say I am. And I think the shooting looks to me to be probably unjustified because from the shooting, the angle I see with the guy that ends up doing the first shot after you hear them say gun, 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 it looks like he kind of pulls his gun really quick, shoots without seeing much there. And the guy they're shooting at has his hands, I think, on the ground. It's hard to see where he has his hands on the gun. And then a second officer actually ends up firing his gun too, which sometimes just happens when you're in a toxic situation like that, and you hear a round go off. It's just kind of instinct to start pulling your gun and find out what's going on. You don't know who's shooting, what's going on. It's a chaotic environment. And so a second person takes a couple shots also. But that initial shot to me does not look, from initial instincts, as justified. And I just get worked up because it depends on which avenue you listen to. If you're watching Fox News or News Nation, you hear one thing. If you hear CNN, MSNBC, or Now or whatever, you hear that, it's the exact opposite. And I would really like to see people not make their judgments based just on their political sway one way or the other. If you're pro-Trump, it must have automatically been justified. If you other, because I can see things through both lenses. I think the ICE, what they're doing is perfectly justified. I think going into the communities, and the reason that this has become toxic, I do blame the governor and the mayor of that city, because if they were working with ICE agency, you wouldn't have this toxic environment if you were allowing them to arrest individuals at the courthouse.
I mean, the same thing. I'm gonna counter that and say the same thing is true if they didn't send the ICE agents in the first place. I mean, there's no obligation for the state to cooperate with the federal government on issues. The states are independent and sovereign of
they should be
for the government, and that's U.S. Supreme Court rulings, not
it's federal law.
No. Federal law.
Immigration law is federal law.
Yes, federal agents can go in. Nobody's disputing that. The dispute is whether or not the state has to cooperate, and the Supreme Court has repeatedly said the state cannot be co-opted or forced to work with the federal agents. Is basically what the law is of the land. So
can they though be told to go away by the federal agents? Can they be told to keep your nose out of our business? The state doesn't necessarily have the power to. That's a good question. In theory, the state isn't like, because they can't keep out the federal agents necessarily. I wouldn't be too surprised to find out that's what's going on is the ICE agents are telling the local and state cops, stay out of our business and we'll handle this. Like if you get a call and they say ICE is harassing me, just ignore it, or you know what I mean, kind of a thing. So that basically...
No, the problem is like the Fraternal Order of Police in Minneapolis has supported ICE. They've put out statements saying we support the federal agents that are in here, but we're not allowed to help you or to assist you because of the way their governor and the mayor of that city has created the sanctuary city status, so they're not allowed to help. They would like to go help. They just can't because of the leadership in that city and state. And that's causing part of this problem, because these deaths and these interactions, it all becomes very highly volatile when you allow this situation to start. And the people on the left or one side of the situation will say, if ICE wasn't there, this wouldn't happen. But guess what? A lot of the people that ICE is taking out, not all of them, I agree it's not everyone, but they're taking out a lot of people off the street that are repeated offenders that the local city government has allowed to go back in the community. They arrest them, they have them for a violent crime, they put them back in the community, they repeat the offense over and over because they're sanctuary city and they won't hold their criminals in their jails. So
how is that a federal issue? That's a state. I'm sorry, but that's a state issue, not a federal issue. Unless it's an interstate issue, it's not the federal government's responsibility to deal with, and that's really an FBI issue, not a an ICE issue anyway. So you're sending in the wrong guys. Let me finish. You're sending in the wrong guys to go after these people in the first place. If if it's not a Nazi-like sweep of a group that you don't like, then you need to send in law enforcement, not ICE agents.
I agree with that, because otherwise what you have is a federal militarized police on the streets basically hunting brown people, and that's not
right.
That's not American.
Well, and that's the problem. That's basically what they're doing. They're hunting brown people, and they're terrorizing communities rather than going after actual criminals.
Yeah, and if you listen to the spokeslad's interview answers to these questions of are you racially profiling people, she says no, that would be illegal. Of course we're not. We're
contradicts the
we're going on circumstantial evidence, which basically she points right back to the fact that because you're brown, that's circumstantial evidence.
The funny thing is the very agents, the ICE agents that are going in are basically saying that they're basically doing sweeps. They're not going after specific individuals for the most part. They're mostly just sweeping neighborhoods.
That's right.
And they're doing it based off of
what do you do with that?
The color of people's skins. Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead, caller.
Just because the thing that takes it to an ICE level is simply that they're going after not just regular random people that are committing crimes. I'm not talking about that. If it was just regular U.S. citizens that had committed some kind of a crime, yeah, that's a local issue. They should be keeping those criminals off the streets to protect their own citizens.
Are you saying the state
ones
doesn't
that
have
ICE are going after are specifically illegal immigrants who have come in this country and are not here legally?
And you're saying the state doesn't have the authority to deal with that? That doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, ultimately, at the end of the day, is the only place ICE should be is at the borders, and even that we should get rid of. We don't need ICE. It's the whole idea of immigration is kind of ridiculous. People who migrate, like they tend to be the vast majority of people who migrate are not criminals. You make them into criminals by saying they can't come here, or you make them into criminals by preventing them from working here, and thus they have to get around dumb laws that we shouldn't have in the first place.
You think anybody should be able to come? Anybody should be able to come to the country no matter what their basic human beliefs are?
Yeah.
Basically,
okay, because the only way you have a country is if you assimilate. You have to assimilate people into the country and have one.
We shouldn't have a country.
You're assuming that people won't assimilate, which is contrary to the hundreds of years of U.S. precedent of people coming from, whether you're talking about Italians or Irish or Germans or
they all assimilated.
Right, exactly. Which is the same thing that's going to happen, and we didn't even have any of the a lot of the restrictions that we did have them against like the Chinese, but a lot of the restrictions that we have today didn't even exist. A couple hundred years ago when a large portion of the population, immigrated in the first place. I mean, we don't need it. We didn't have it in the past. It's contrary to American values. I don't know what more to say.
It's not contrary to American values.
Oh, it absolutely is contrary to American values. We're not supposed to be discriminating based on skin color, and the entire basis of immigration policy is racist.
Supposed to be the land of the free.
Do you know how immigration started in this country? How good immigration was done in the original founding of the country? When people came to the country, you didn't just walk in the country. You had to be sponsored by someone who would take responsibility, so you weren't going to be a ward of the state.
What?
And
this isn't true. This isn't accurate.
It's inaccurate.
No, this is far from accurate. The people who originally came here predate the United States.
They had like a Coast Guard,
right? There was no Coast Guard. There was no Army. There was no. Listen, there wasn't even a standing army at the time, dude.
Yeah, if you
we're
just
talking after it was the United States of America. I'm talking after we were the United States of America. When we were immigrating people to this country as the United States of America, you would be sponsored to come into this country, and you were vetted. You were checked for health care.
It came later.
You for how good
you're talking about something that came much later. There was no other than I believe the Chinese. There was some restrictions at some point on the Chinese, but for the most part, it was open immigration. There was no what is it? What was it? New York Island. There was
Ellis Island.
Ellis Island only came about because, it came about for like health reasons and such.
And you could skip it, but it was considered impolite, and so most people are polite, and they just stop off there. And show that they're okay.
The basis. Whatever justifiable basis they may have had in the past doesn't even exist today. There's not a health, there's not some sort of health concern. We're not screening people for whether or not they're infectious, and they're going to spread disease in the United States. That's not the basis for immigration, right? Like if it was, then maybe there would be some justification for it, but it's not. What it is it's basically a system that is intended to restrict, basically people who from less well-off places, coming into, places where they can be more successful.
And this is the thing too, is the libertarian.
The crazy thing is we need these people too.
Stance on this is open borders because why wouldn't you want somebody who saw a better life for themselves here and is they did the work to get here. I think they're going to be an okay neighbor. But in today's situation, you have something different going on to where you have this unnatural immigration sort of scenario. And a lot of these people aren't, they're not assimilating to the culture at all. And I don't know.
Assimilation takes generations anyway, so it's not this thing that happens overnight anyway. Like, it's not like the Irish or the immigrants or the Germans all of a sudden were assimilated the day one when they arrived.
Give us a call. Let us know what you think. 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Uncovering the secrets and exposing the lies. That's what the readers of freedomsphoenix.com get every day. freedomsphoenix.com, constantly providing the information, the real news about government policies, and the real relationship we all have with the coercive government. The real condition of the economy, innovations in technology, breakthroughs in energy, health, and computer science. Learn the truth well before it's admitted to in the lamestream media. The corporate media, nothing more than distributors of government propaganda, but now there's an alternative. freedomsphoenix.com. Constant news updates on the issues that affect your life in the most important ways. With liberty and property under constant attack, freedomsphoenix.com provides the understanding behind the propaganda, and it encourages the participation of its readers. Go to freedomsphoenix.com. That's freedoms with an S, phoenix.com. freedomsphoenix.com. The revolution between the ears has already happened.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases, but officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland. William Denslow, Brussels.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure. Isaac Lucando, Dar es Salaam.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
You can stick it to the man and big tech. Join our FTL social mastodon at social.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live, talk radio you control. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. Are you tired of the oppressive rules and moderation of the big tech social media sites? Our Mastodon server at social.freetalklive.com can set you free. Mastodon is free, open source, decentralized, and federated. Multiple apps are available for iOS, Android, Windows, Mac, and Linux. That's social.freetalklive.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu.
Riley O'Bill.
And that's new. Mr. Penguin.
Oh, you haven't heard the Riley O'Bill thing?
No, I haven't.
See, our friend Riley here, he gets a little heated sometimes.
Sometimes I do. Right now, I'm not really heated, so not yet anyway. But
right.
it is a balmy, 4 or 5 degrees outside? It's really warm out there today, so,
Okay.
I might get heated.
Yeah, it got into the double digits today for the high. That was pleasantly warm. We've got callers on the line, so we're going to go straight to the phones. Got another wireless caller. You're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hello, is this me? Am I on?
Yes.
I don't know if it's you, but you're on.
Okay. I want to talk about a program that I'm involved in to bring in gold-backed currency. And there's kind of a lot to it. I've started a cooperative, and part of the cooperative, it's registered in New Hampshire, and part of the cooperative is it will have a bank of sorts which issues gold-backed currency. I'm working with a large organization in Russia, and there's about 200 of these.
I love this. Russia.
Oh man.
Yeah. There's kind of a lot here, so it'll take several minutes here to explain this. Okay, there's a guy in Russia named Alexander Nikolaevich Paramonov.
If this drags on too long, I'm going to have to let you go, so maybe you can give us a skip to the end version.
Well, I've started a cooperative. There's 200 of these cooperatives in operation. We're being backed by an incredibly wealthy man. He's inherited.
What does the currency look like? Is it a crypto? Is it paper?
No, it's the goldback, you said.
The goldback. Goldbacks are fantastic. Is that what it is?
I'm not sure what that is. This is currency backed by gold. It's currency backed by gold.
Backed by gold.
Okay, let me ask you a question. Why would you? Why would you
obsoleted now?
Right. Why would you go with a currency backed by gold when you can just use the gold back, which actually embeds the gold in the currency?
Yeah. Just hold the gold.
This is
paperizing gold is the reason that the price is artificially low.
Say that again, please.
Paperizing gold is the reason that the price is artificially low. The price of gold ought to be much higher.
No, but there's a difference between paperizing gold and issuing gold-backed currency. This can actually be traded in, as I understand, for
Is it like
gold.
a piece of paper I can trade for gold?
What's that?
Is it a piece of paper I can trade for gold, or is it cryptocurrency?
No, well, they have both. But no, I'm talking about currency paper that can be traded in for gold.
What's the name of the project?
Well, one of the main organizations called the Sovereign International Treasury Monetary One, or M1 for short. I have a website which explains a lot about this. It's firstamendmentcafe.com. And the thing is that there's like 200 of these cooperatives already going on. The media silence on this is deafening, and it's a red flag that they don't want people to know about this. And I mean, we're actually doing this. This is like a grassroots campaign all around the world. And we're going to institute this. And then what the thing is, the powers that be, they control us through their control of the financial system. And that system is about to collapse, but this system will already be standing and it will take over. And so they've already got, I just wish they've got a marketplace in Austria now. Well, it's based in Austria, but it's for all of Europe, where they can just trade and buy with this gold-backed currency.
Let me stop you. I want to ask you some questions here about this. So, Riley, refresh my memory. What was the thing that was backed by gold that the U.S. government seized in like a couple decades ago, I believe it was?
I don't know if it was backed by gold, but it was Oh.
You're talking about Liberty Dollar.
Yeah, Liberty Dollar. That's it. Yeah. So how is this any different than Liberty Dollar? And it seems like it's a substantial risk to the user in that the federal government just come in and seize it. Whereas we've already got better solutions like cryptocurrencies and actual gold backs. Currency that actually has the gold in it in a convenient form.
Has gotten big trouble for trying the Liberty Dollar thing, and I think that was mostly because the way he did it was he was calling it a currency or whatever. It had to do with the way he had it. Well,
I mean, that was the excuse that they used, but
the excuse they used.
It's not going to matter whether or not you do it correctly in quotes. I mean, they're still going to go after you for something else. I mean, that's the whole reason why an actual gold currency made of gold is much better, because even if the government goes after the producers, that currency still has value after the fact. If you go after the backers, you lose the value in the gold backed currency, and it becomes worthless.
Do you know about Bernard von Nijhuis's son Extra? He did Liberty Dollar 2, which was a crypto, silver-backed crypto. And that one was supposed to be 100% reserve and audited, kind of a thing. So trustable situation in warehouse receipts for metals.
But guys, this is already an operation. They're already trading with it. I mean, it's already in use. There's like 200 of these cooperatives.
Yeah, it's the same thing with the gold back, dude. It's no different. And the cryptocurrencies are far more traded than a couple hundred co-ops. I mean, cryptocurrencies have been trading around the world, and it's way harder to attack than a gold backed currency.
Yep. Thanks for the call tonight.
This sounds like something that people would be talking about maybe 2 or 3 decades ago, at least.
Yeah, definitely.
I mean, something that this is
gold backs.
The problems that gold-backed currency has today are just so substantial, and the solutions are so much better that it's not even worth having a conversation about at this point.
Does anyone have any gold backs we could show our TV audience, if you will?
Oh yeah, for sure. I mean, but
in the meantime, we're gonna go. The phones are pretty busy tonight. We're going to go to Tommy in Georgia.
Actually,
I believe is who this is. Tommy, or you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Must have spent them.
Yeah, this is Tommy from Georgia. So two things. First off, the gold back is phenomenal. What I bought in years ago is already tripled in its buying power. So everybody, please look into that.
Yep, and they haven't listed at the like they set their own exchange rate on them, which is generally double spot.
We should be careful.
To some people, that might seem.
We should be careful about how we phrase that, because it's not necessarily doubling or tripling in value. It's the U.S. dollar has declined in value. So.
Well, definitely.
Yeah,
that's what it
holds pretty steady in what it will purchase, though.
Yeah, holding steady in purchasing power, I think, is a better way to phrase it.
Yes, exactly. But going, the main reason why I called in tonight is it's kind of piggybacking off the first caller. I mean, I'm not an educated person by far, so I'm not going to claim I know all the facts and all this other stuff like that. But,
does anybody though?
I read a lot of history, and in fact, the last time I called, I talked about the Civil War, and the parallels that we're seeing, especially today with Minnesota talking about pulling up the National Guard against the federal government. I mean, it's no different than when Lincoln moved troops in on Sumter and Governor Pickens of South Carolina decided, all right, well, we're going to fire upon Fort Sumter, and started it all off. And
going to do the exact one thing that they said, if you do this, it's going to start a war. It seems like a setup.
My biggest concern is, I mean, it's like, reading through the comments on different platforms that today after this incident in Minnesota, it's so disheartening how bloodthirsty people are now. I get it that people are angry in Minnesota. And
that's the point of this that's the point of this thing. It's to divide people and to make them angry at each other. See,
that's why in the end, I mean, my solution for everything is secession, but we got to deal with the situation that we're in and the cards that are dealt at this moment. But people are so bloodthirsty and entrenched, and they don't want to talk to each other. I commented between 2 different platforms, and on one, I'm getting called a loony liberal, and on others, I'm getting called a right-wing extremist because people cannot hear. They can't find common ground. And
it's hard these days with social media to find people with common ground.
Which doesn't that just...
No, hold on.
Sorry.
We're trying to... It's hard to have a conversation with people on social media and in general today because we're so divided, like you said, and we're so divided because we want to believe we're all right. We're all collectively in this social media pool, but yet we're also isolated because we want to do our own thing. We want to believe our own thing. And I don't know. I don't know what the solution is to get everybody to talk to each other other than, hey, let's divorce. It's time to divorce.
But isn't that exactly the, it's funny that they criticize because isn't that exactly the reason for the divorce in the first place? Like, that's why you would want to go in that direction, because we can't get along, and it's not like we can't get along on some issues. We just can't get along on all the issues. So,
well, we can get along. People are choosing not to because they're scared and because they're on the internet where there's
I think people can't get along because they want to control other people. It's like, stop it. Stop trying to control other people.
40% social media traffic is bots or AI, public opinion generation due to some intelligence community or military operation, and so it's no surprise that that's what you find when you go on the internet. You go out in the real world and things don't look like they tell you it is on the internet, but you go on the internet and everybody's like, oh yeah, this is definitely what's going on. There's an external stimuli that's got people very upset. They can't identify it, so they're willing to lash out at anybody different than them. Caller, you still there?
Oh yes. Well, my parting shot, and I'm hoping that I can reach the ears of a conservative or a liberal out there. That's ready to go to the streets and fight this out. It is not. Neither side has the moral high ground here.
That's for sure.
Yep.
And it is not worth. It's not worth, because the biggest losers in the Civil War were the men and women and the citizenry that were impacted by it. That fought. We hear about the presidents, we hear about the generals and all that stuff, but the people that actually suffered at the hands of these people were going down this path again. It's so dangerously close.
Yep. Thanks for the call tonight. That's a good outlook on it. I think just we can get along. We could even get along with the neighboring city full of a completely different culture that wants to adopt a completely different set of laws. You can adapt to that. You just know what goes on in that next town over, and you probably don't go that way anymore. They build a faster road around that town is what happens. And then that town suffers from it, and they probably change their ways and they get assimilated one way or another. But the way they do it now is it's clearly a tactic used to destabilize any given culture. They've been doing this for a very long time. It
seems like there's definitely a divide and conquer mentality
in the playbook for empire building.
Sure.
We're gonna go to the phones now. We've got
another caller,
Dave Ridley. Dave Ridley, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Gentlemen, have you guys ever heard of Roman Yampolsky?
No,
not ringing a bell.
So
unsure. So
I
who
guess
is he?
I'd call him he's going to be the latest feature in my what's becoming a series on people who are trying to solve the AI alignment problem.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So the AI alignment problem for the uninitiated is basically this question of whether AI is going to kill us all. And so he has been working on trying to develop safe superintelligence for a decade or two. And I guess he's thought to be the founder of the person who coined the term AI safety in 2011. And he had an idea that I heard him articulate a week or two ago that I think is worth sharing with the public. And what he wants to do is set up a thing he calls like an X Prize for superintelligence safety. Does that make sense?
Yep, does to me. That would be like a bonus prize for somebody who's got the best idea to make an AI safer for interaction with humans.
Yeah. And so one of the things that makes this interesting is that he's one of the people with the highest PDUM in the AI community. His PDUM is over 99.9%. You know what PDUM means?
Remind us. I don't remember.
I think it would best be defined as the chances that AI at least wipes out civilization, maybe wipes out the human race. That's what's considered doom. So if you have a PDUM, my PDUM is 25%. So I believe there's a 25% chance that AI will wipe out civilization. He believes there's a 99.97% or something like that chance that AI will wipe out humanity or at least wipe out civilization. So the fact that he's even still in this discussion as opposed to, blowing all his money on coke and hookers is helpful, I guess.
PDUM. This is, I don't know. I bet people have had so this is short for probability of doom. And I bet people have had this concept in their mind as far back as they've been looking up into the sky and, observing the planetary bodies.
I don't know if it goes back quite that far, but I think they're
not necessarily related to AI, but like just a catastrophic end to everything, right?
Yeah. I think you're right. I think there's like an algorithm from, I don't know, decades and decades ago at least, that like they're trying to predict like civilization, like how long it'll survive, something to that effect, because of technological advances, basically. And it's nothing to do with the AI specifically, but it's like, okay, so we have the nuclear bomb, and what's the chance of us blowing ourselves up, for example?
Mm-hmm.
That kind of thing.
Yep.
So was there more to say, Dave?
This is one of the reasons my PDUM is only 25%, is because of the fact that humans have lived for this long with existential weapons and not used them on a large scale. So maybe if that can be done, then this can be done. But the other thing, actually, do you guys know much about the X Prize?
No, just that it's a large amount of money pooled by people who want to see a thing done, and then whoever has the best idea or invention toward that goal.
You should probably just tell us what it is, because even if we know what it is, our listeners probably don't.
Yeah, for example, I think they set up an X Prize that put the first person in space with private money, a while back, not in orbit, but just...
Oh, yeah, I heard about that.
Down. But yeah, actually, I had this idea too a couple of years ago. I emailed the X Prize Foundation and suggested there'd be an X Prize. I called it more of like a pause prize, where you set up an X Prize related to the attempt at pausing AI. But I think this is probably a better idea, because it's very difficult to get everyone in the world to pause, but you might be able to get money, directed to a genius team that is able to fix this problem.
What problem are we talking about?
Well, the problem of whether or not we're all killed in the next 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
By what?
By AI.
By AI taking over the systems. And
I mean, the problem is like, how do you see? The problem is, I think it's probably more the application that's dangerous than AI. Like, AI is not really all that scary. All it is basically, pattern recognition and it's what comes next, right? And mathematically, statistically calculated. And of course, the more data you've got, the better the results. But
and it doesn't feel things, and it doesn't have concepts like right and wrong, or true and false. Even
there's like
just it knows what true and false are, but it doesn't know about lying, so to speak.
Yeah, I want to say it's like we've had okay, maybe they didn't call it AI, but we've had ASLR, for example, which are license plate scanners, basically, right? On cop cars for a long time, that's a threat, that's a danger, right? But it's also very similar to what we're calling AI now, and it's like, okay, yeah, the application is a threat, but like, it's not necessarily a threat if you have a closed circuit camera hooked up to detect people, coming around your house, right? To alert you. That's not really a threat to anybody. Well, maybe the burglar or something, but generally that's not a threat, right? Well, but of course, if you hook up all those cameras together and then you give it law enforcement access, then all of a sudden it becomes a threat to people who maybe are just driving down the street and are going to a political protest, right?
Yeah. And that, the threat part comes in because, like you said, you've given it over to.
Yeah, it's the application. It's the use of the technology. It's the real problem.
Right. So it's just a tool, like a lot of things, but history has shown that humans will use a tool to destroy things before they use it to.
Know are
positive things,
really stupid. Like the vast majority of people.
We definitely can make stupid mistakes.
I don't even know if you can say they're mistakes. There's like a history of like stupidity.
Yeah.
If you believe that superintelligence in and of itself is not a threat, then you're not arguing with me. You're arguing with Geoffrey Hinton, the godfather of AI, and with Alan Turing himself, the father of modern computing.
Well, I mean, I think the problem is that we don't really have anything that's really AI. Like, I mean, we have pattern recognition, right? And we have I'm trying to think the technical terms to describe what we have now, but like most of what we have is not really
the large language models.
Yeah, right? Large language models. That's what I was looking for.
Right, they're like pulling all the information they have and trying to serve up whatever's going to satisfy. The
right,
query.
like you wouldn't want to hook that up to a system that like determines whether or not you're going to nuke your enemy, right? Because at some point it's gonna nuke your enemy. So like that would be a stupid implementation of the technology. The technology itself, though, if you don't hook it up, isn't going to be a threat, right?
Well, the problem is they're hooking it up like that.
That's
called Palantir.
And maybe that could be a threat, but like it's not really the technology that's a threat so much as its implementation that could be a threat.
The implementation.
Right.
Dave?
Nothing to add. Roman Yampolsky is his name, so you can remember it. I'll sing it. Roman Yampolsky. Roman Yampolsky.
Thanks for the call tonight, Dave.
Thanks, Dave.
They really like to talk about like catastrophic doom for all of humanity or whatever. They've been, they use it to push their agendas because once they have people kind of scared, then people are really willing to go along with whatever they're told to do.
There's always fear mongering going on about everything from music to porn to and cars. Natural in the early days of motor vehicles, people were freaking out. That's why that's actually why we have a driver's license today, is because people were freaking out about the car. It's like, okay, no big deal. And the car, literally the driver's license was intended to discriminate against motor vehicle owners. It had nothing to do with safety. And yet that's what it's being like. We're being propagandized into believing that driver's licenses are about safety, and it has nothing to do with safety.
No, it's true, man. One time they suspended my license while I was mid driving, and just like as soon as they hit that button on the keyboard that suspended my driving privilege, I crashed into a tree. Believe it or not. No, just kidding. That didn't happen. Driver's licenses do not make it safe to drive. Paying attention and competently operating the machinery is what makes it safe to drive. Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. You can talk about whatever you like. This is Free Talk Live.
So the protection of life, liberty, and property is what the Free State Project is all about. But it's an effort to move 20,000 people who understand.
It's about demonstrating to the entire country
that, we can have a free market, a truly free market. Making it just a freer, great place to live.
It's the world's largest voluntarist libertarian community, and it's only getting bigger.
That's amazing, to be able to move to a place where other people passionately believe in being free and independent.
What the Free State Project is managing to do, though, is to put their money where their mouth is. Physically getting up across the country and saying, let's go someplace and let's demonstrate the power of these ideas. There's a lot of kind of philosophy that surrounds liberty. There's a lot of thinking about it and talking about it. But here in New Hampshire, people are doing it.
101 Reasons Liberty Lives in New Hampshire, a documentary by Free State Project Early Movers. Watch it free at 101reasonsfilm.com. 101reasonsfilm.com. So you've signed the Shire Society Declaration and are planning your move to New Hampshire to be around more liberty-oriented people. Next, sign up for the Shire Society Forum at forum.shiresociety.com. There are a bunch of people there who are already in the Shire, and they want to meet you. If you're already in the Shire physically, you should also come by the forums. Remember, not everyone uses Facebook. New people are signing up for the Shire Society Forum every month, so drop in and say hello at forum.shiresociety.com. Tired of cancel culture? Sick of mega tech corporations holding an axe over your head? Join the LRN.FM Matrix chat server. It's self-hosted, so no one else can tell us what to do or say. Don't like the existing channels? You can make your own. You can even connect into some of our channels from other Matrix servers. It's federated. For the full LRN.FM Matrix experience, though, you should join our server via the step-by-step instructions at chat.lrn.fm. Chat.lrn.fm.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 2 is next, after the news, here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases, but officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure.
From bureaus worldwide, this is FSN. TikTok announced that it has established a majority American-owned joint venture to operate its U.S. business, allowing the company to avoid a ban over its Chinese ownership. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
TikTok says the majority American joint venture will implement strict safeguards for data protection, algorithm security, and content moderation for US users. According to reports, the agreement provides for American and global investors to hold 80.1% of the venture, while ByteDance will own 19.9%. Three investors, Silver Lake, Oracle, and Abu Dhabi-based AI investment fund MGX, each hold 15% stakes. It comes after a law passed in 2024 requiring that the US version of the app be spun off from its parent company ByteDance or be banned in the United States. US President Donald Trump repeatedly delayed enforcement of the law as he pursued a deal to transfer control of the popular app to American ownership.
Donald Trump's bid to control the U.S. central bank looks set to be rejected by the Supreme Court. During arguments on Wednesday, justices from across the ideological spectrum appeared concerned that the president's efforts to fire one of the Federal Reserve's leaders could imperil its independence. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The justices questioned whether the unproven allegations against Lisa Cook that she engaged in mortgage fraud before taking office were serious enough to allow the president to fire her. It comes as the administration has escalated its attacks on the Fed in a bid to get it to lower interest rates, including launching a criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell over whether he lied to Congress about cost overruns related to the renovations of the Fed's headquarters. He's pushed back, saying the charges were politically motivated. The Supreme Court's ruling could determine whether the Fed will maintain its long history of political independence.
That was a look back at some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer.
For those hoping to get ahead of the work week, look no further than Overtime Plus, a new app that lets you work for your company even while you sleep. The app keeps you trapped in a constant half-awake, half-dream state where your thoughts are never far from the drudgeries of the work week. By simply laying your phone on your mattress, the app's accelerometers are able to measure your movements throughout the night, so it knows when you're close to falling into a deep sleep and losing focus of the crushing work demands ahead of you. When restful sleep is detected, the app dips into your personalized work tasks to generate a subliminal signal, like the date of an important deadline or keywords from the most damning portion of your last job review to jostle you back into a state of productive, semi-awake agitation.
I was close to falling asleep last night, then my app started whispering my boss's name over and over again until I was awake and answering work emails at 3 in the morning.
Last night it made me dream that I was locked in the office until I could find the most optimal way to catalog the company's new server. I still haven't figured it out.
The app doesn't just keep you mentally shackled to your day job, but also serves as an alarm clock by repeatedly shouting you're late for work until you're jolted out of bed in a panic each morning.
This is the Onion News Network.
Don't miss a moment of Free Talk Live. Get our archives daily via our podcast at feeds.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. If you want to call and chat with us about whatever's on your mind, the phone number here is 603-283-6160. And I would like to thank Ryan for being an amplifier with us here at Free Talk Live. That means that Ryan went to amps.freetalklive.com and signed up to support the show. AMPS stands for Advertise, Market, Promote, and Support. Thanks again to Ryan and everyone who supports us. Again, that's amps.freetalklive.com if you'd like to check out the perks and benefits of becoming an amplifier. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley O'Bill,
and Mr. Penguin.
We have been busy on the phones tonight, and we still have callers, so we'll go straight to the phones, where we've got Tim in Florida. Tim, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Hey, guys, I'm responding to that. I think it was the first caller calling in about a gold-backed currency of some sort, and he had given the name of his website, firstamendmentcafe.com. So I was listening, and I went there. And immediately, red flags started going off everywhere, and I started following the links, and it's pretty bizarre. You should go there and look. I mean, it's a propaganda. It looks like a cult, a pyramid scheme. Where to even start? So,
what gave you that impression?
Well, the first thing I noticed was that his personal page was very rudimentary, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. basically kind of like a classic old school. I don't know if he just used HTML or what. But I'm not making fun of this site. But so I went to his homepage. I realized I had to scroll down to see more. So I went to links and I found some of the things that he was talking about. Somewhere I found a link, and maybe it wasn't a link, but somewhere I found a link to monetary1.org. So when you asked what the organization was, the Russian organization, well, when he's saying it's a Russian group, it's actually, I mean, I'm sure they're physically in Russia or Kazakhstan, but they are somehow aligned with, the USSR, which, you would think doesn't exist. At least that's what I thought.
Yeah, that's supposed to be defunct.
So there's something called the SICC-LGR, and assuming it's the same one, yeah, it is, SVRUS.SU, and about us, it says the activity of the SICC-LGR is aimed at creating a national structure of the organized existence of the people of the USSR. And there's more, but I'm just looking at the Google search result. But what I noticed that conjuncts with that on the monetary1.org site, here's where I'm really, before I get to that, on the guy's page that he made, the first thing you see, First Amendment Cafe, an extraordinary leader has arisen to restore justice and lead us into a new golden age. And I don't think he's talking about Donald Trump.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
It's that Alexander guy. I think he may have mentioned the name once.
Yeah.
And so that, I don't know. It's very bizarre because if you scroll through monetary1.org, you get to a section called Introducing You. I suppose it's supposed to be introducing you to, unless that's pyramid scheme language, introducing you. The World Council of Sovereigns. And I see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 groups, some of which have links, but the names on these things: Sovereign International, Consumer Cooperative, Light, Great Russia, and Sovereign International Treasure Monetary One. The one that I wanted to read, actually two of them. This one's interesting. Sovereign Order of St. John of Jerusalem, Rhodes, Malta, and it's got like that Crusader cross, something like that. Great Sovereign Country Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. And so when I clicked on that link, I'm like, oh boy, I don't even know what to think about all this. They've even got a department page on monetary1.org, and this is where you realize they're trying to resurrect the U.S. This is how I interpret it. They're trying to resurrect the USSR in the form of like a global, central digital currency. Because you're looking at all these departments: Department of Counterterrorism and Financial Intelligence. They've got one for money laundering. The Treasury Executive Department for asset forfeiture. Guys, don't put your money in this. It's the biggest scam ever. Department of Anti-Money Laundering. Like they're trying to build a state from the ground up, like a bunch of kooks.
Huh, interesting.
Interesting.
But they have a UNID, and it's crazy.
Thank you very much for pulling this up, Tim. I love little rabbit holes like this. I'm going to tell you on this thread later when I'm just sitting at home winding down, because these things could be a lot of fun. One thing, like this reminds me of the thing I found that was some guy had proclaimed himself. I think he proclaimed himself king over the whole world or something, and he was dead serious about it. And he was he had control of some island, and the dude was wildly rich, but nobody had ever heard of the guy. It was just some obscure reference I heard, and I started looking into it, and or I found it on accident while just looking through the internet for something. I can't remember, but I don't know. There's lots of weird stuff like that out there.
If you go to the guy that called, if you go to his page, there's a document section, and I'm not, I don't know. It's they've got these documents. I don't know what SITM1 is, but SITM1 Resolution 35, this resolution states in part that lesbianism, homosexuality, bisexualism, transgender, LGBT, pedophilia, bestiality, cannibalism, sex change, human trafficking, human organs trafficking are a form of violence and propaganda of perversions and perversions of humanity. The resolution also proclaims that these perversions are considered to be the extremist information and terrorist information, and that all beings are involved in pushing these things in the mass media are subject to complete disembodiment and criminal liability and capital punishment to the fullest extent of the divine law of creation and the law. See, now it's starting to sound really like North Korea.
This is stuff that guy has on his own website, or that was a link on his website to a document?
These are actually on his website, these resolutions.
Weird.
He's got a cease and desist letter against BlackRock. I'm no lover of BlackRock, but it's just funny. They're like, BlackRock is in complete inconsistency with the divine law of creation.
Yeah, like they're going to pay attention to that.
All right, guys, this has been fun. I'm going to go.
All right. Thanks for the call tonight. Well, I hope that previous caller is mentally stable enough to not hurt himself or others, because sounds like he might be a little bit kind of over the edge there.
You know, it's interesting that when you tug on strings to people that give out websites, you find some interesting stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know if he's crazy or if he's somebody working for a federal government or something,
or just trying to promote an idea that you thought was cool.
Yeah, sounds like it could be like a Russian government, some sort of Russian government affiliated like thing.
That's kind of
as opposed to a U.S. government affiliated
anybody to
agent
me says like Russian drugs or Russian gold or anything like that. To me, I just think, man, you're trying to set something up for sure.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Well, I mean, so the thing that kind of, there's a few things I think he said that was on the page that kind of made me think, oh, that definitely sounds like a Putin, some sort of a Putin affiliated thing, like the the gay stuff and like I'm trying to think what else he said, but like there was a couple of different things in there that were just USSR, that's another Putin kind of talking point or whatever, and there was just like a couple things like that, and I'm like, it's definitely, it doesn't sound like a U.S. federal government maybe, but like maybe a Russian federal government angled thing.
Yeah, and the Russians are very strange with that kind of stuff. Like they're just bizarre in the kind of propaganda they spread and things like that, which makes them a very interesting people. I really enjoy their humor, and I think the Russian people are great. Their government, on the other hand, is questionable at best, and man, the way they're managing the war up there, I guess, is pretty sad. They got, you would laugh at quite a few of the situations going on, like people just like sacrificing, maybe 20 guys to get one truck 100 yards down the field because drones are just giving them, way too much grief to even deal with, and just the way they just keep, like, I don't know, it's the old Russian way, just keep throwing more bodies at the problem, and because they have an endless supply.
Yeah, I don't know. It's hard to know like what to think in terms of like, Russia and Putin and everything else. It's like some of the stuff is like, I don't know. It's like, oh, we should do that. And then there's other stuff that's like, or maybe not we should do it, but like, yeah, like I think he's right. Like, Russia should be, defending itself and, against a, world that's basically coming at it. And, I'm not saying that he's maybe justified in some of the actions that like Russia has taken or Putin has taken, against like Ukraine or whatever, but it's like he makes good, like there are some, I think, good points that, like Putin has made, for example, in regards to, the NATO basically encroaching on, Russia and what was traditionally Russian influenced in the USSR, basically, right? And that kind of thing. But then there's like other things that are just like they're just so messed up. But then it's also like the case that like you've also got like, you've had periods of like in Russia where like kind of almost it was how do I phrase it? It was sort of like, it was almost libertarian. Like you've had points where like the government basically failed and collapsed, and like kind of anything went. And that was kind of a cool time, I think. Like, and I'm talking about like probably the 90s, right? Like up until like 2000 or so, early 2000s in particular. Like there was some crazy freedom going on there. And then it was sort of like Putin kind of cracked down.
There was a lot of that going on too, kind of leading up to the collapse. You could kind of see it coming because the black markets had just flourished so well.
Well, right, and that's part of it. That's part of it.
Half of the economy was done on the black market, which actually equates to freedom.
Right.
And guess what? That makes you prosperous.
Yeah. I mean, and it's like, oh man, like I don't know, like it's there's something to be said for like, the problem is like there's a, like, I don't want to say there's a danger that comes with freedom, but there's sort of a danger there is a danger that can come with people, doing stuff, right? Like because of the freedom, they can do it because there's no restrictions. But at the same time, it's like there's a certain amount of danger that's sort of, how do I say it? It's essential for freedom, and I think is reasonably acceptable. But there's also like, at times some people go too far, and it's like, okay, you own slaves thing, for example, like you kind of cross the line somewhere.
The robber barons and the Pinkertons, and where like private industry does things that it's actually pretty difficult to come up with a private, a market action response to.
Yeah. Like you can't go around beating people up because you want their land or whatever, right? Like, I mean, I get it. I get it. You need that land, but there is a line somewhere, and where it's like, okay, we got to restrict violence, basically, to some degree. And the reason I say to some degree is because like there's some kind of violence that is it's not immoral. It may not be something I would participate in, but it's not necessarily immoral. And we'll just take like boxing, for example. Two people
that's why
entering a ring voluntarily is, they've agreed to it. They want to do it.
Triggering my autism, Chris.
Yeah.
Because I have this thing about definitions, and that's boxing I would not call violent, as most people would. I would just call it aggressive, right? And then that runs into my problem with the terminology and the non-aggression principle.
So
it should be called
that's
non-violence,
fine,
because violence denotes that you have violated.
Let's take this to Roman.
It's within the word. It says violence is to violate, right? So, but whereas aggression is like, you can be aggressive in a soccer game, or I can be aggressive while building things, and there are positive forms of aggression. Whereas violence never has a positive form.
So we could take this more towards a Roman gladiator style death match, right? And as long as it's voluntary, right? And the only reason I wouldn't bring that up probably
it wasn't, but yeah.
Right. And the reason I wouldn't bring that up as an example of violence is because it wasn't usually, I think it was frequently not voluntary. But the point that I'm trying to make is that like you could have gladiator style death matches and it be violent, and everybody who's participating is voluntarily participating in, and that I don't think there's anything immoral or wrong about that. Like, I wouldn't participate, but that doesn't.
I've been assured that I just need to relent on my need to have strict and hard, fast definitions on things, which really bothers me, because it's. If you read 1984,
it's hard. It's hard to come up with straight definitions for stuff, because
not necessarily. It is in English, right? It's not so hard in Latin, which I'd be okay if we all just went back to Latin. But and that's part of what English was designed to do, is to give ambiguity to a lot of words and to trigger subconscious thoughts when using certain words. They call it a green language, or like they'll call it sometimes the language of the birds, where they really designed it to confuse the masses.
So you believe that English was designed to confuse the masses?
Yeah.
For what purpose?
For example, the word nice used to mean like gullible and easy to handle kind of a thing. It was not at all a compliment. Now you tell somebody they're nice, and that's a compliment, right?
Okay.
But the subconscious still knows that that's not, like, that word actually at some point meant that you're just kind of gullible and easy to handle, which is quite insulting.
So I shouldn't call Riley nice.
I've tried to stop using the word in that way, but I mean, that is the problem, right? If I stick to my need for we stick to the original definition of every word, then you can see how that's not going to work, because everybody's now using the words differently than I am. So this word violence, I as much as I wish it meant to violate somebody's rights, I guess it just doesn't. It means gory, or, like brutal or whatever. There's so many other words too that you could use instead of violence.
But also, if we stick to strict
co-opted.
If we stick to strict definitions of words all the time, then language doesn't have a chance to evolve, and language always evolves.
Well, you just add new words. Why does the definition of one word ever have to change? Because if it changes, then I might be using the old one, and you might be using the new one, and we can't even have a conversation.
The words frequently change because of propaganda, right? Like, we use the word differently.
Sometimes. But sometimes, like slang words just sort of get... a lot of times those are organically grown to where people will just start saying things like cool or whatever.
Yeah.
Sometimes those are part of a social engineering campaign too, and they came from some Tavistock think tank or something like that.
But I feel like
seeded into the public mind.
I feel like that's often a censorship issue. Like, you can't say, certain curse words, so people say other words, right? Like,
yeah, I think it could be too, and that's a good example too, because when you're using the replacement word, exactly what word is actually being referenced there, and so you might as well just say the word.
Yep.
Yeah, tricky things about language. That is one of my triggers to where I just get, man, it drives me nuts, because if you read 1984, it quite clearly illustrates the dangers of having a shifting definition of words.
With Newspeak.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
You want to talk more about what happened in the State House and New Hampshire independence? It sounds like
I think it's
like a good, downhill rolling snowball.
Good place to continue. I still can't believe how many calls we've had already. It's only halfway through the show.
So to catch up our audience, when we started the show, we talked about how Mr. Penguin and I were visiting the State House and discussing we went to the State House to talk about a secession bill, or a bill to study what it would be like if New Hampshire were to leave the United States, and not a lot of people came out to support, unfortunately.
Yeah, I mean, so it wasn't, we didn't promote it like we have in the past, which is why we didn't have 150 people show up, right? But I probably wouldn't have made any difference, so it wasn't I don't think it was too big of a deal that, we only had, 4 or 5 people basically testify. I think we got the points out, but at the same time, I do think that maybe we should have, just because of the reactions of the reps. And unlike last time, we actually had more reps than we did in prior hearings for similar bills and constitutional amendments. There were probably 15 maybe reps or something like that, and we've had as few as maybe 7 or 8 that actually showed up to hearings on these hearings. You would think reps would show up to the hearings, right? But they frequently don't. They're on a hearing or on a board or whatever, or however they do it. And I'm not sure exactly what the choice words here are to use are, and then they just they don't show up. It's and then you only have a partial board, and it's are you gonna do your job? Aren't you supposed to be listening to the testimony so that you can make a recommendation? But anyway, so you end up having only a partial board vote, and some of those people who would have voted are absent from voting, or they vote even though they weren't there half the time, so they didn't even hear the testimony from the people who spoke. Anyway, this time they were, I think, one person left or something, but for the most part, this was packed. It was packed as far as reps being there were concerned.
Yeah, there were a lot of reps there for sure.
Yeah. So all right. So basically so there's certain things that that New Hampshire can't do as a state that it would be able to do as an independent country. And some of the problems that New Hampshire has had in recent years, it can't actually fix without a Declaration of Independence. Mm-hmm. So or at least some sort of autonomy, right? Declaration of autonomy or something along those lines. And one of these examples is New Hampshire is one of the few states in the United States that does not have a sales tax, but our businesses are being basically hindered and stifled because they're now required to collect sales taxes for the rest of the United States. And there's 10,000 different taxing jurisdictions. Now, the whole system doesn't work as it is anyway, but it's particularly, harmful to New Hampshire businesses because we don't even have a sales tax ourselves. So why should our businesses be required to collect sales taxes on behalf of 10,000 other governments, basically?
Well, you know what the federal government would say would fix this is a CBDC.
Yeah. Well, anyway, one of the things so if New Hampshire became like Canada, well, our businesses here would not be burdened, by this insane taxing system. Because it works differently when you ship goods from outside the United States into the United States. So that's one of the examples that I gave during my testimony at the State House.
Give us a call. The phone number here is 603-283-6160.
Anyone can publish on the internet, but not everyone is publishing material suited for online reading. According to the Yahoo Style Guide, it cautions that internet content has a few seconds, 3 or less, to encourage people to read more, to take action, or navigate to another one of your pages. So make it easy for readers to pick and choose. Isn't that the way you poke around online? Use short words, short sentences, short paragraphs, bulleted lists, and short pages. Front load what you write, putting the most important information at the beginning of headlines and paragraphs and sentences. Same goes for your keywords, what someone would likely type into the search box on Yahoo or Google. For more tips on communicating better online or in a job interview or everyday life, hit survivalspeech.com. I'm Holland Cook.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases, but officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland. William Denslow, Brussels.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure. Isaac Lucando, Dar es Salaam.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
We're still not sure why you'd want to watch, but our video feed is streaming nightly for free at cam.freetalklive.com.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. You can give us a call. Let us know what you're thinking about tonight. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. And Free Talk Live is brought to you by LibertyMinded.com. Official Free Talk Live gear like t-shirts and hoodies are available at LibertyMinded.com. Plus, you'll find a unique collection of cool and funny liberty-oriented clothing at LibertyMinded.com. That's LibertyMinded.com. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley O'Bill,
and Mr. Penguin. So we were just talking about a bill in New Hampshire that it would create a study committee on independence. That is, Declaration of Independence from the United States, basically. Or maybe create some sort of autonomy for the United States. So,
or New Hampshire, rather.
I'm sorry, yeah, for New Hampshire, right. Autonomy for New Hampshire, or semi-autonomy within the United States. So, for example, Puerto Rico is a territory of the United States. They get to vote for the president, I think, but they don't have any representatives. They only have, I think, I don't know. I think they might have people who come and are not, they don't get to vote, I guess, but they represent, but they don't vote, something like that.
They effectively act as their own country. They're not beholden to the IRS or federal taxes.
Yeah, and there's some others like Mariana Islands, I believe, or the Northern Mariana Islands, something like that. Sort of similar situation where they have their own customs duty base, or customs basically when you enter. So like but they don't pay federal income taxes, for example. Right. Now there is like a Mariana incomes tax, I think, or something along those lines. But it goes to the Mariana Islands government, not to the U.S. federal government. So yeah, it's kind of interesting. Anyway, so there was like, people have some weird ideas about like what a succession movement is, and like, for example, they were kind of like, I don't know if I felt like they were under this impression that like we wanted to declare war on the United States or something like that.
But you really don't. We want to peacefully.
No, right. Like this is a formal process, guys. It's kind of one of the things I was trying to get across to them. No one is declaring war, and maybe the United States would invade or something like that. But that's here and over there. It's we don't know unless we declare independence, right? And even if they did invade, that doesn't necessarily mean anybody dies. In fact, you can have a successful independence movement where basically nobody dies. I'm trying to think, Dave Ridley actually would be the best person to bring this one up. But one of the, I don't know if it was after the fall of the Soviet Union or during the fall of the Soviet Union or just before it fell, but there was a country in Europe that declared independence from the Soviet Union. And normally, like, the Soviet Union would have sent in troops, but they didn't send in troops, and nobody died, and it became an independent country. And the same thing could happen in the United States if New Hampshire declared independence. Even if it didn't declare, or even if it didn't, even if it declared independence and the United States sent in troops, for example, it doesn't necessarily mean anybody would die, right? It all depends on, what, people's reaction were to that. It could be the case that there would be some sort of rebels hiding out in the mountains and taking pot shots at troops or whatever, and that could happen. It's not an impossibility. The people leading the way as far as independence are certainly not going to be doing that kind of thing. I mean, we're talking about 1.4 million people versus 320 million. There's just no chance of us being successful in that way, I don't think. And so it probably wouldn't be the people who were pushing for independence doing that. But one of the things that people have to understand is that New Hampshire has less than 1% of us are libertarian or pacifist leaning. So it could be that like we declare independence and like maybe there are people here who would take up arms against the United States, but that's not what this is, right? That's not what the study bill is. The study committee would be for. It would be for creating a formal process to leave the United States or create some sort of autonomy for the United States that ensured that New Hampshire, the Granite Staters, are better represented, basically. Basically, no one is declaring war, and there was a comment that was made about swearing allegiance to the pledge, basically, and being indivisible. So indivisible is in like the Pledge of Allegiance or something along those lines. Yep. So here's the problem, like with their kind of logic and argument. So first of all, the Pledge of Allegiance has changed. It's not what it was. It's also,
and it wasn't even in the original founding documents.
No,
George Washington didn't recite a Pledge of Allegiance. John Adams didn't recite a Pledge of Allegiance.
And it was actually created by, I believe, a communist,
socialist.
Some sort of socialist.
Francis Bellamy.
Yep. And so like the whole idea is just sort of like, it's really crazy that you would swear allegiance to it. It's kind of it's the opposite of what it means to be American, right? Like, so like this idea that like you would use that as a defense, as to why you can't then go and, declare independence or vote in favor of a bill that would study the idea, right? Is just crazy. But I think a lot of people, they're brainwashed with, was it 14,000 days of schooling or whatever, where, they've said Pledge of Allegiance. And so they're brainwashed into this idea that, just because, there was a civil war, in the past, for different reasons. And I should point out, we've had multiple civil wars, really. I mean, there was a civil war. It was called, one of the wars was against the British. And at the time that would be a civil war, and we just the side that won was the people living in the colonies, right? So
there were two of those, and the second one ended in a draw, technically.
Yeah, in any event, the point is, we've gone through multiple civil wars in the United States, so to speak. And when the colonies declared independence against the British Empire, that wasn't legal. I mean, just as it might not be legal for New Hampshire to declare independence against the United States, right? But that doesn't mean we shouldn't do it. And if you are truly representing the people of New Hampshire, you should be thinking about these things, and you should vote in favor of the study committee. Because it's not saying that we're declaring independence. All it does is it would give us the information that we need, or the people need, in order to make a decision on that. And it wouldn't even be you as a representative that would be voting on independence. It would eventually lead to an amendment that the people voted on in in New Hampshire on whether to leave or not. So, but yeah, it's very. And the other issue I think I have with this sort of they take their oath seriously, is that you're literally basically swearing an allegiance to a foreign power when you swear an allegiance to the United States or Washington D.C. effectively. You should be swearing an allegiance to the people, and if you feel that you take your allegiance so seriously as to,
I wouldn't want to swear an allegiance to the people either.
Right. Well, this is the point. Like, you should probably be stepping down, because that means you're swearing an allegiance to a foreign power, basically. And that's contrary to what the interests of the people of New Hampshire is.
But also it was brought up that they were swearing an oath to uphold the United States Constitution. But the United States Constitution, as we all know, has been trounced on by the people calling themselves government for so long that our contract has been violated.
from the beginning, because we're talking about being beholden to a foreign entity, and it says right in Article 6 that the United States federal government can enter into a treaty with another country that effectively makes the people of the United States beholden to that other country if it says so in the treaty.
Yep. But it gets even more crazy because the New Hampshire Constitution predates the U.S. Constitution. If the New Hampshire Constitution, if we had the power to join the United States, we certainly have the power to leave the United States, right? Like, I mean, this would be sort of like, saying you can't divorce, your partner because you entered into this agreement. And well, listen, things change, and if things change and your partner is abusive or whatever, and they violate the terms of your agreement, you're gonna get a divorce. Most people accept that in America today. I mean, heck, most people are divorced today, right? So this idea that you cannot get a divorce because of, I don't know, some sort of false allegiance, and by the way, that allegiance that oath that you took, it's not even a real oath in the sense that you didn't voluntarily enter it. You were forced to enter it in order to become a Congress critter after you were elected. So if you had refused to take the oath, you would not be in you would not be one of our reps, even though you were voted for. So it's not valid. It's not a valid contract. It's not a valid thing. It's completely contrary to what it means to be American. All right.
I haven't read the New Hampshire Constitution. I'm gonna read it. I bet it's pretty good.
Yeah, it's a stronger. So the New Hampshire Constitution, like most state constitutions, is actually stronger than the U.S. Constitution.
Would it serve well now or well enough?
Yeah. Like if we did not honor the U.S. Constitution, we would still be better protected by the New Hampshire Constitution.
Would it need rewording so that there's no ambiguity on things like
the
right to bear arms?
It would need revision. No, I don't think so. We already have that right within the New Hampshire Constitution, I do believe.
I know, but it says that in the United States Constitution as well, but they've gone ahead and infringed all they wanted to because of shifting definitions.
To the best of my knowledge, New Hampshire hasn't removed or undone anything at our New Hampshire Supreme Court or anything like that. I mean, somebody else might be a more of an expert on this, but really
my question was, would they rewrite it just to remove ambiguity from the current wording?
The thing, I don't know that there's any ambiguity in the state constitution. Most of the state constitutions are much clearer than the U.S. federal constitution. So,
people were better writers 250 years ago.
Well, in any event, where was I going?
The problem is we're probably using different definitions than they were 250 years ago for a lot of those words. Right now, though, we're going to go to the phones because we got a caller. This is Sarah in New Mexico. Sarah, what's on your mind tonight? What do you think about New Hampshire independence, by the way? Would you be okay with that, or would you be dead set against it?
New Hampshire Constitution?
No, if New Hampshire just leaves the United States, what would you do?
If New Hampshire became a country.
Oh, that's not going to happen. Didn't Texas
what if it did,
break
though?
Away?
Would you be okay with it? I just want to know your personal feelings on it.
Well, I don't think so because that's not logical. You just can't.
What do you mean it's not logical?
Well, Minnesota wants to break away. They're like, we want to have our. We're not part of the federal government and all that. I mean,
so you're gonna.
I wouldn't be mad at them, would you, Sarah?
You want to send in troops and kill people, Sarah?
No, but I mean, look at it. I'm just saying they want to break away. They're not going to let them. So
sure,
what chances
but just because they won't let them, would you let them?
Yeah, that's what I'm asking. How do you feel about it, Sarah? Would it be okay with you?
Well, I think it's best to just stay a country as it is. But
but why?
They do. Huh?
Yeah, but why?
I just don't. Well, isn't it better? I mean, the economy. I mean, you're just surrounded by all the states, so
Sarah,
going to be really
Sarah,
separated?
see, I think this is part of the problem that people don't understand. That just because you're independent countries does not necessarily mean that you don't trade with other independent countries. And there's free trade amongst Europe, but yet there are also independent countries in Europe, right?
And trade, not taxation, is what makes nations rich.
Yeah. So this idea that you would say not be able to travel between states without a passport, for example, that's not necessarily the case. There are also places, around the world where you don't need a passport to travel between countries, or you do not need to check your passport when you travel between countries, right? These are things, that are actually modern creations. For example, the passport, that's a modern invention. I want to say it was World War I or World War II that it came to be in the first place. The driver's license, that we think of as an ID today didn't even exist until like 1900 or so. A lot of this stuff, and by the way, it had nothing to do with safety either. So it had to do with being discriminating against motor vehicle operators, because at the time they were new and people were bigoted, basically, against people who drove cars. So yeah,
it's a light version of internal passports as used in apartheid South Africa.
Yep.
Yeah, well, I would go for it. I don't think it would make that much of a difference whether you're your own country or not country or whatever. But it's the effect of it. If you want to do it, you could try it, but the rest of the country is not going to let it happen. So,
but you wouldn't be mad at us, or would you? But you wouldn't be mad at us, or would you?
No, because even if you guys, I don't think it would really make much difference. Cause
I don't think so either.
No, and that's the thing, Sarah. I think you hit on something there. It wouldn't make much difference, right? Like people think that this would be this huge big thing, and it actually wouldn't, because
not at first, but then you would see
New Hampshire. So what people don't understand is that nobody's saying we're going to change the form of government, which is actually one of the questions that was asked. Or one of the reps had this impression that we were going to change the form of government. They asked, well, what form of government would you take? And it's like, what do you mean? Nobody's changing the form of government. The government would be the same. We would still have the New Hampshire government. We'd still have a representative government, just like we do now.
Just without the federal overlord.
Right. It just would be not under the U.S. federal government, right? And the thing is, you might ask a question like, well, what about the U.S. Constitution? Like, you have rights. If you got rid of the federal government, you would no longer have rights. Well, that's actually not true for multiple reasons. One, the New Hampshire, we already have a stronger constitution in New Hampshire than the U.S. Constitution. So you're not even like being, even a declaration, even if we start saying, okay, we're no longer going to follow the laws of the U.S., well, we already have the rights under the under the New Hampshire Constitution to protect us, and they're stronger than the U.S. Constitution protections to whatever degree, the U.S. Constitution even protects us in the first place.
Yeah, but with Trump in office, do you think you'll have any luck? He wants to take over Greenland. That's what is your? You have no hope of you're going to get let off and be your own country with him in office.
Well, and this is the thing. More people need to push back, right? It's not just New Hampshire that needs to push back. It's other parts. It's other parts of the United States. Nobody is really, nobody's really demanding. How do I say this? We don't want to stop trading with Massachusetts or California or, the rest of the United States. We just don't want to participate in wars overseas, like that kind of thing. We don't want to be forced to collect sales taxes. For example, our businesses don't want to collect sales taxes on behalf of your, California, for example. And it's not that California can't collect a sales tax. It's just that the way the system works now is New Hampshire businesses are being forced to collect sales tax and distribute those sales taxes to California. And that's a huge burden. Whereas if you look at Canada, if my business ships goods into the United States to California, and my business is a Canadian business, we don't have to collect sales tax for California. But because New Hampshire is part of the United States, we have to collect sales tax for California. It's absolutely insane in that we don't even have a sales tax in New Hampshire in the first place. So why would we be required to collect sales tax for a foreign government?
Well, it sounds all good, but it's like I always hope for speeding cameras on the freeways.
Well, that's great. That's great. And you would be able to do that, and you'd be more free to do that if you were an independent territory or a different country than if you were part of the United States. You understand, Sarah?
I'd like to see it.
You actually have
go nuts with the cameras and red light cameras and all of the surveillance state things, and just as a social experiment.
You have more freedom if Arizona were to declare independence to do those types of things than as part of the United States.
Mm-hmm. If you got New Mexico to secede,
they have those because it was their state. That was a federal. It belongs to the federal highway, but it was going through state of Arizona. I think they had every right to put them on. So sometimes it's not like what we wish, what we want, like what could be, but what it is. It's not happening.
Yeah.
So
I agree with you there. You got to deal with reality. But when Trump gets mad that we want to secede, then we can at least tell him that Sarah in New Mexico said she wouldn't be mad at us if we did so. And that'll help a lot. What was on your mind, though? What did you call about tonight, Sarah?
I just hope. Hey, what did you think about that shooting? I mean, do you think that it was his fault that he got shot like that? I mean,
which shooting are we talking about?
Are you talking about the one today in Minneapolis?
Right. The nurse, the RN that got killed.
Yeah, I haven't looked into it very much, but I'm biased. I'll admit it right up front. I'm biased, and I automatically want to think that the ICE agent was at fault.
I think it's at the end of the day, it is ICE's fault, or it's President Trump's fault for sending in ICE in it and putting these agents into circumstances where they're not trained for and for which they are not. It's not their job.
See, they're trained to escalate. They're trained on all the wrong tactics.
They're not trained for law enforcement. That's not what they're trained for. They're trained for like border control, that kind of thing. It's not
control.
They've had a little bit of training for this, but it's not been really good training.
A lot of these guys,
it's been very brief.
A lot of these guys do joint training exercises with the IDF,
Israeli intelligence.
I'm mad at Trump too. Yeah. I blame the agents just because they had protesters there for how long since that lady got killed? They told them they want them out, and they're still there. So no wonder that guy was protesting and he had a gun. I don't know if he was going to really shoot anybody.
So
I doubt it.
So Sarah, I mean, isn't this a good example of why Minnesota should be independent? If Minnesota was independent, a country, it would be able to tell the U.S. to get its ICE agents out of Minnesota. I mean, and those ICE agents wouldn't be there, and they wouldn't be a killing, a murder of innocent protesters.
Do you think it was the guy's fault, the nurse? You think it was his fault? I haven't looked into it well enough to know.
I think that it was a little bit of his fault. I mean, he was. You don't be waving around with a gun with the ICE agent.
Oh, hold on. He wasn't waving around a gun. He had a gun. And that's not, if he was brandishing a gun, that might be another story. And maybe there would be some, right of self-defense in terms of the agents, in terms of the agent, but that's not what happened.
Yeah, no, I take the side of the poor nurse. I do. They didn't have to have 6 guys jump on him like that. There's something wrong,
right? Right, and that's another point, right? Like he was on the ground being restrained, and then they shot him. Like it's not even like they shot him in defense; they shot him after they restrained him.
Yeah, they're gonna have a hard time defending that one.
Yeah, right, and yeah, it's like kind of the worst possible scenario. And apparently, the one agent shot him, and then like another agent shot him, like in the commotion because. Yeah, the whole thing just sounds crazy.
Well, yeah. So, you know what, you guys, elections do matter. I just hope that people turn out during is it the midterm? Is it this November? It's the red state, they have to vote against Trump. Those are the ones that's going to make it. Like all the states that voted for Trump the last time, they have to elect the opposite. They have to put in Democrats there's a chance of impeaching him maybe at that time legally.
Sarah, this is what you're suggesting is highly unlikely. I mean, both impeachment and let's see. I don't think he can run again, but it's possible that we get another Trump in office, and it's often because of how absurd the left is. You guys need to tone it down massively if you want people to vote for the left. You got to focus at state levels on more socialist policies, not the federal level.
The left-right show is still compelling enough for anyone to watch. Give us a call. It's Free Talk Live.
Free Talk Live.
A GoPro camera that's costs $300 is better than a Taser-made camera.
Yeah, so there are other competitors in the marketplace, and they weren't given a chance to even bid on that. I mean, that's good old boy cronyism, isn't it? You support that?
Are you opposed to free enterprise?
I am for free enterprise. I am against no-bid contracts. You see, free marketplaces have competition so that we find out if products are superior or not. In an area where you have no-bid contracts, you'll never find out what's better. You said that there was no coercion here.
Making the purchase can make that decision for themselves.
No, they cannot, because they're taking my tax money at the threat of my home. You said there was no coercion, and I will remind you that they will kick me and my family out on the street if I don't pay property taxes. To suggest that this money belongs to the police chief is just the kind of boot-licking that takes this country into fascism.
Free Talk Live, 7 nights a week from 7 to 10 Eastern at freetalklive.com.
The new 4th edition of Healing Our World, The Compassion of Libertarianism, will take your understanding of liberty to a deeper level and has over 1,300 updated references, new cartoons, and a foreword by Dr. Ron Paul. With discounts for multiple book purchases, the 4th edition of Healing Our World is a great gift for the liberals, pragmatists, environmentalists, and Christians in your life who think libertarianism is cold-hearted. Get yours today at healing.freetalklive.com and use promo code FTL for a $5 discount. There are lots of ways to listen to Free Talk Live. Our podcast has been around since podcasts began, and now the FTL feed is loaded with content besides our full show archives. Did you know that we make it easy for you to customize your podcast subscriptions? We have different feeds, one that includes only our full shows, one with just the Daily Digest, and our main feed that includes everything. You decide what you listen to. It's quick and easy to customize your feeds at feeds.freetalklive.com. That's feeds.freetalklive.com.
You're listening to the live edition of Free Talk Live. Hour number 3 is next after the news here on the Liberty Radio Network at LRN.FM.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases, but officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is FSN. TikTok announced that it has established a majority American-owned joint venture to operate its U.S. business, allowing the company to avoid a ban over its Chinese ownership. FSN's Laura Westbrook reports from Hong Kong.
TikTok says the majority American joint venture will implement strict safeguards for data protection, algorithm security, and content moderation for US users. According to reports, the agreement provides for American and global investors to hold 80.1% of the venture, while ByteDance will own 19.9%. 3 investors, Silver Lake, Oracle, and Abu Dhabi-based AI investment fund MGX, each hold 15% stakes. It comes after a law passed in 2024 requiring that the US version of the app be spun off from its parent company ByteDance or be banned in the United States. US President Donald Trump repeatedly delayed enforcement of the law as he pursued a deal to transfer control of the popular app to American ownership.
Donald Trump's bid to control the U.S. central bank looks set to be rejected by the Supreme Court. During arguments on Wednesday, justices from across the ideological spectrum appeared concerned that the president's efforts to fire one of the Federal Reserve's leaders could imperil its independence. FSN's Kate Fisher reports from Washington.
The justices questioned whether the unproven allegations against Lisa Cook that she engaged in mortgage fraud before taking office were serious enough to allow the president to fire her. It comes as the administration has escalated its attacks on the Fed in a bid to get it to lower interest rates, including launching a criminal investigation into Fed Chair Jerome Powell over whether he lied to Congress about cost overruns related to the renovations of the Fed's headquarters. He's pushed back, saying the charges were politically motivated. The Supreme Court's ruling could determine whether the Fed will maintain its long history of political independence.
That was a look back at some of the week's top stories. Ira Spitzer.
So, you're trying to get pregnant and nothing is working. Give it another shot. Because the key to getting pregnant is let people know you're trying, often and with great detail. By constantly announcing to your friends, family, and casual acquaintances that you're trying to conceive, you dramatically increase the chances of your partner putting a brand new bun in your oven. When I was trying for Lincoln, I made it a daily goal to bring up which position Hunter and I were experimenting with in every conversation I had. I told literally anyone I could, from teachers to babysitters to telemarketers, that I stand on my head after Hunter finishes inside me, and sharing that information really helped me conceive. Plus, people like hearing about it. There's nothing to be ashamed of or hide. What your husband's unprotected penis feels like as he thrusts. How you'll whisper possible baby names in his ear as he ejaculates. These are perfectly natural things to bring up at an office party or to announce at the beginning of a flight.
This is the Onion News Network.
You can help spread the ideas of liberty with our Patreon for just $5 per month at amps.freetalklive.com. Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. Talk radio you control. You can give us a call here. The phone number is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley O'Bill,
and Mr. Penguin.
We've been on a wide variety of topics tonight.
We definitely have. We've also had a lot of callers.
Lots of callers.
Yeah, lots of callers.
And speaking of, we have one on the phone right now. So let's find out. This is a call from Slough House, California. You're on Free Talk Live.
Oh,
you know, Mr. Penguin, you should. You need to stop. When you guys argue for like this weird fantasy of peaceful secession, you need to stop. arguing from very rare, virtually non-existent exception to argue your case. You guys are just ignoring the long history of unilateral secession. They're all likely to be violent and full of bloody death, right? And they're all usually backed. The successful ones are usually backed by other states.
Yeah, but it's
right?
that's not.
You can't just ignore that.
You're kind of missing the point, right? Like it doesn't matter whether or not New Hampshire is independent. We're literally talking about, in some sense, because we're literally talking about a negotiating, right? Like we're sort of a negotiating angle more than anything else. Nobody's going to be taking up arms against the United States. That's not the point of it.
What do you mean negotiating? Are you going to the other states and asking permission if you could take New Hampshire out of the union?
Nope.
Or are you doing this unilaterally?
I think still kind of in a planning stage and drumming up support.
Yeah, you got to. Okay, so first of all, we're not talking about any kind of independence tomorrow. We're talking about long term here. So it's something that's likely going to take 50 years, right? Like, and it's been, we've been doing that. We've been working on it for 20, and we finally got, quite a bit of support in the House. And we probably have a support. I really don't know where we are in the Senate, but we have some amount of support, and it's the support is increasing fast, but it's still going to be a long time.
Is the increase in support from migration, or is it from conversion?
That's an interesting question. Like what percentage of the people are like free staters that support it versus people who are not?
I'm just wondering if you guys are just convincing extremists just to move to your state just so you could try to take it over. You're not convincing anyone.
Well, so here's what I can tell you.
Everyone knows that.
So here's what I can tell you, man.
New Hampshire is part of the union.
So hold on a second. Shut up for a second and let me speak. So here's what I can tell you in regard to this topic. The state itself is about 1/4 of the House is basically are free staters, or at least aligned with free staters. Good portion of them are free staters, from what I understand. The percentage of people in New Hampshire who have moved here that are free staters that make up like the population of the state is less than 1%. So we sort of have far greater control over New Hampshire than the little bit of representation or the little bit of voting power that we have. We're disproportionately represented is basically what it comes down to. So I can't tell you with certainty your specific questions, but I can give you some sort of an idea. We do obviously, what we're saying and what we're pushing is obviously supported by the people of New Hampshire, the natives, because if it wasn't, then, we wouldn't have 1/4 of the House, basically.
So what do you get? So let's say, your immediate goal is to somehow try to get a referendum passed. So your state
no, not a referendum. It would be the way.
They just want to form a planning committee.
Yeah. So in this particular case, it's just a plan. Not a planning committee. It would be a study committee, is what it would be. Yeah. So the point of it would be to answer questions that people have, reps have, in regards to independence. So if we declared independence,
I mean your medium-term goal. I didn't mean immediate. I mean. That's leading up to what? A referendum, right? A state referendum?
It could be. No, I don't think it would be considered a referendum. It would probably be a declaration of independence, and that might come in the form of a constitutional amendment. But it would be voted on by the people. So, but first, before you get to that point, you have to have the state reps. So New Hampshire we don't have referendums like other states that do. It would have to go through the state house, and the Senate would have to vote in favor of it, and then it would go to the people for a vote. And so we would need, I think, 3/4 of the state house and the Senate, I believe, before it would go to a vote of the people, and then the people would have to vote.
But whatever you call it, the Declaration of Independence, you don't think the federal government will step in to defend the rights of the dissenters, right? They have every constitutional right.
It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. Listen. It doesn't matter whether the U.S. federal government steps in and sends in troops, right? Like it's one of these things where you need to do it in order to have an impact, have influence, and begin to change things. And what you have to remember is that it's not unilateral succession, as you would phrase it, it may not be unilateral, right? Like, so right now it seems like it's almost impossible to see or envision the United States breaking apart. But it may not be as far off as people think. Nobody thought the Soviet Union was going to break apart when it broke apart. And we don't know if, the United States is going to break apart in a year from now, or if it's going to be 2 decades from now. The point is that
the big difference
this is sort of
USSR
preparation.
And the United States is something needs to precede a breakup of a union, right? It's always a fiscal collapse, some type of fiscal collapse.
That's fine.
Right? But if you try to do that before it,
nobody is going to. Look, it's something that's for the future. You got to get to a point where people can conceive it and be willing to vote for it and support it, right? And that's all we're doing. It's mostly education at this point.
It sounds like Skeeter's suggestion is that we wait for the fiscal collapse of the United States in order to.
That's the most likely thing that kind of thing would likely boost support for New Hampshire independence.
It's a logical suggestion, Skeeter.
Yeah,
one of your few.
But like I said, it doesn't even matter because it's for some future scenario that we don't have all the news. We don't have all the information for yet, right? Like we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow as far as a collapse of the economy or whatever.
If you're looking for data on unilateral secession, there's tons of it. There's tons of wars that were fought, losses. Just look at. I think the closest thing that resembles your movement is what happened in Catalonia, right? I think that's kind of like the closest thing that kind of resembles your movement, what you're kind of hoping to approach. But of course, they failed, and the leaders of that movement got chased out of the country before they were allowed to come back and forgiven.
Is it your idea then that the historical lesson is that unilateral secession movements never succeed?
No, they do. They do succeed. They do succeed again with helps of other states.
Yeah,
usually.
We don't know. It could be that some other.
It could be.
It could be some other state supports the secession movement in New Hampshire at some point, like maybe Russia, or maybe Europe will support it, or maybe Canada will support it. Maybe Canada will welcome New Hampshire into its.
I can actually see that happen.
Look at what's going on between the United States and Canada right now. There's basically a collapse in trade. Canada has opened up trade to China and various other countries.
They'd rather be a partner with China than America,
right? And it may be that Canada would be willing to take us in as far as another territory, and we'd be what you would call semi-autonomous, meaning that we wouldn't be fully autonomous. They might be responsible for trade, for example, negotiations, but not necessarily have decision-making power over other aspects, right?
And in a divorce, right? You guys don't fully own New Hampshire. And in a divorce, you can just leave. You don't have any right to the separate property you gained through the marriage.
So are you about
New
to claim
Hampshire was part of the union before you were born, and before you migrated there from another state, right?
Yeah, but New Hampshire was one of the first. Hold on. New Hampshire was one of the first colonies to declare independence from the British Empire. We were a country prior to the United States formation. This idea that we can't do it again is kind of ridiculous.
You're saying like you're a natural born New Hampshire.
It's irrelevant. The point is that New Hampshire, whether or not it's me personally or not, New Hampshire has that right.
You're a federal citizen first before you.
No, that's not true. That's nonsense. Right? You're first a citizen. So this has been a long-going debate that predates the United States' formation. You look back at the Federalist versus the non-Federalist, right? So you actually had this very freaking argument going on for a long time. Are you a citizen of your state first, or are you a citizen of the U.S. First? And it's. So
you were born in New Hampshire, Mr. Penguin?
I was not born in New Hampshire, but my partner was.
Your partner was?
Oh, actually, no. I'm sorry. He wasn't born in New Hampshire. He was actually born in Louisiana, but he lives here. His ancestry is in New Hampshire.
I'm not sure what the relevance.
So I guess that answers the question of which came first. Your federal citizenship or your New Hampshire citizenship, right? I guess.
Personally, Personally,
how many of you own land in New Hampshire even?
Personally, but it's kind of irrelevant because New Hampshire actually is like California in a lot of ways, is made up of a population that is not mostly native born anyway. So like it's kind of an irrelevant argument to be making. It's just because somebody was born here or not born here, it doesn't matter.
Which preceded which? That's irrelevant to which preceded which, your federal citizenship or your
You're a
New Hampshire
natural
citizenship?
human first.
Listen, if we want to talk about who owns New Hampshire, it's not people who are white. It's people who predate the U.S. predate the Columbus.
Which fraudulent contract did you enter into first?
You're trying. Also, you think the United States is not going to defend the dissenters of your movement? Like
they're already attacking us, dude. I mean, they've arrested Ian. I mean,
attacking you.
What more do you want? Like seriously,
he broke the law.
No, he didn't.
He had his day in court.
Didn't.
He had his day in court and
He broke no laws.
He didn't break any laws. If you actually listened to the trial and had any understanding or been able to follow what was happening, the evidence, literally the evidence that the prosecutor introduced literally disproves the very arguments that they were making. But the jury couldn't possibly have understood or followed what was going on. Literally, the jury just listened to the prosecution, completely couldn't follow any of the evidence, and probably just, based their decision. And there was other issues with the jury too. Like, for example, one of the people on the jury was part of a hate group that hates free staters basically, and she said something like I'm part of a hate group that hates free staters or whatever, but I could be unbiased, and so they let her on the jury.
You guys are treasonous.
I like treason.
I don't see how that's not
treason is
reasonable.
my favorite. I love treason.
You guys are insurrectionists.
Good.
Nobody is an insurrectionist. Nobody's declaring war on the United States. You're confusing. You're confusing.
There's renunciation, right? There's always renunciation, and that's your exit. That's your exit clause, right? You don't have to take the land you never had the full rights to. That was part of the union before you were even born.
Who had the full rights to this land ever? That's what I want to know.
All the citizens, right?
No,
you have to get.
New Hampshire
showed up, and the natives lived here.
New Hampshire is a conquered territory, of the United States, just like every other part of the United States. It's a conquered territory.
Are any of the conquerors alive today? You can't blame any of the conquerors.
No, and the victims to those wars are not alive either. I mean, look, the reality is we're here.
To them. You're not even related to the victims. How are you? How you claim that?
Well, actually, that's not entirely true. Not me personally directly,
it's just
but my
demonstration about how your argument
my partner
is wrong.
is actually directly connected to some of the victims. Okay, he's also directly connected to some of the conquerors as well. What's your point?
And those, you would have to show that you have some type of higher claim to the land you own in New Hampshire.
My partner's ancestry predates the United States, dude. He was literally his.
I'm talking about specifically in that New Hampshire. Like if you use your libertarian, it doesn't.
His mother is Native American. Okay, her ancestry predates the United. Goes back tens of thousands of years in North America.
You can't just group New Hampshire into You can't just. Where is your claim to the specific land in New Hampshire?
Anybody who could do anything.
Where's the United States' claims to the land in New Hampshire?
Anybody
right?
who could do anything productive at all with the land in New Hampshire could demonstrate a higher claim or a better usage of it than the federal government. So that shouldn't be hard at all.
Look, we're not trying to control all the land of New Hampshire. People are free to come and go from New Hampshire. When we become an independent country, we're not trying to set up borders. People can come and go freely as they want.
And are you guys really independent? Like you guys are relying on probably again free riding the national defense, so you don't have to worry about taxation on national defense. If you guys were not surrounded by the rest of the U.S. citizens, right? How would you deal with national defense?
What do you need national defense for?
Who are we going to defend ourselves against? Canada? Come on, seriously.
Look. The reason why China hasn't invaded Taiwan yet is because of they're allies with a lot of the Western states.
Are you telling me that New Hampshire couldn't join NATO just like the United States joined NATO, or Europe is part of NATO, or any of these other countries are part of NATO? I mean, there's a lot of small countries that are part of NATO.
What makes you think you can join?
Why wouldn't we be able to join?
As a legit,
we have a similarly aligned goals to NATO.
You're not going to be recognized as an official, a sovereign state.
Okay, so if they don't want to let us join, we won't join. I mean,
maybe BRICS will take
it's
us.
It's not like the United States is going to allow Russia to come in and take over anyway.
And so, what do you guys plan to do? So, in your libertarian logic, what options are you going to give to dissenters? People who don't want their land outside of the Union, but you're forcing them by taking New Hampshire.
First of all, we're not taking anybody's U.S. citizenship, right? So you'd still be a U.S. citizenship by nature of the fact that you were born in the United States at the time that you were born.
Outside of their union.
As far as the land, nobody's taking the land either from those individuals. If you want land that's in the United States, you can always buy land in the United States and sell your land in New Hampshire.
No, when you secede New Hampshire, you become your own sovereign state, right? It's no longer part of the United States, right?
So you can sell your land if you own land in New Hampshire and go to the United States and buy land in the United States.
You can also sell your land here in the United States, go somewhere else, renounce your citizenship, and do the same thing. Why is that different from
We're
what
doing
you
that.
just
We're
proposed?
literally coming from all over the world to New Hampshire for that purpose.
Lots of people expatriate. It's a fine.
We've already done that, dude. We already did literally what you're saying.
Trying to hijack New Hampshire. It's the same thing.
It's no different. We also surrendered land in New Jersey and California and Washington and Russia and all over the world. Why is it that we should not be able to take land in New Hampshire when we've also surrendered our rights to land in other countries elsewhere?
He's totally avoiding my question.
I didn't avoid your questions. I answered your question.
Yeah, you're talking about you have to, when you secede, people who dissent have to sell their land if they don't like it and get out.
Well, that's up to them, right? That's not up to me to decide. That's up to them.
Yeah, they won't coerce.
Nobody's telling them they have to sell their land, dude.
I'm trying to tell you. You need to confess that you're forcing them to have.
No, there's no coercion.
Nobody is forcing anybody to sell their land, dude.
They're free to leave. Nobody's going to come and interrupt them and their rights.
If they don't want their land to be part of New Hampshire, they don't have to be part of New Hampshire. They can sell their land and move into the United States.
Now apply that logic to the United States.
I don't want to be part of the United States, so why should they force me to be part of the United States? I don't want to be part of the United States right now.
You're telling them they have to leave. They have to sell their land.
No, we're not. Nobody is telling anybody they have to leave. You're saying that we're telling them they have to leave. We're in complete disagreement on this, dude.
Skeeter, hold on. I got a question. I got a question for you now. This is so let's switch the roles here. Was it okay? Was it okay when the United States took Texas from Mexico? And if it was okay, is it only okay because they had the guns to do so? And then, if that's affirmative, then would it be okay for New Hampshire to secede if they had superior firepower to the United States, hypothetically speaking? Can you answer those questions?
Well, under libertarian ethic, no.
No, it wasn't right to take Texas?
Under libertarian ethic, under my ethic, it's different. It matters. So whoever's more productive probably has the most guns.
Oh, okay. So the most guns does make it right, in Skeeter's opinion.
Yeah. Well, no. Whoever's the most productive makes it right ultimately. But it tends to give people more guns too to take whatever land you need.
Yeah, but then once you have all the guns, then you don't have to be productive anymore.
What's that? Yeah, you do.
No, once you have all the guns, you don't have to be productive anymore. You can just coerce people into doing all the production for you.
Yeah, no, I think you got a point there, Stu. So like,
oh my God, that's a horrible.
If you've got the guns, you can just take the value that others have produced and keep it for yourself.
No,
it's the Mongolian prince's problem.
You're not adding any value to the production process. The productive individuals can rebel because it's.
Well, who cares? I got the guns, man.
Yeah, what kind of production?
You don't have the guns without being productive.
Yeah, you do, because you've got
taking guns.
Well, I mean, once you're productive enough to have the guns and you use those guns, and then all of a sudden it doesn't matter how productive you are.
Also, spending your resources on guns, which don't produce anything, is going to reduce your amount of productivity.
If you're not part of the productive process, the productive entity, which is a collective group of individuals, will eventually rebel. You can see this throughout history. They're going to cut the unproductive part out. It's an evolutionary process. So shut up with that. I mean,
so you're saying the federal government's about to get cut out altogether, anyways?
Because
that's the unproductive
that have the guns don't produce the guns. Say that again.
You're saying that the federal government's about to get cut out altogether anyway, since that's the unproductive part.
No. So the people believe that we're better off with the federal government, right? You can't force them to believe otherwise.
I don't think they actually believe that.
If they believe the federal government was inefficient, they could easily repeal the 16th Amendment and taxation.
I mean, does anybody believe that the government is efficient? Period.
No, nobody believes the government's doing a good job, or that it's honest or moral, or that it's in any way efficient. They just they have a certain amount of fear that keeps them from demanding an end to the thing.
I think it's the fear of. I think it's partially the fear of the unknown. People don't.
They don't know what. What will we do next, and who will build more roads?
Yeah, and they have this idea, like when you're talking about like things like independence, that like you're saying that you're going to change the form of government. Now we're going to live under a dictatorship or something like that, and that's not necessarily the case. I mean, it certainly has happened in the past, but that doesn't necessarily mean that's the way a independence would go. It certainly wouldn't be the plan of action for independence in, say, New Hampshire.
Thanks for the call tonight, Skeeter. We can get to your calls on the other side of this coming up. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. It's Free Talk Live.
Hey, you are going to love the movie Victimless Crime Spree. It's hilarious, heartwarming, and carries a ton of inspiring freedom messages. Feeling down about the lack of liberty in your life? You need to put on this film with some friends and have a good laugh. It's a true story about me and my friends in New Hampshire living free, singing, dancing, and getting arrested. Of course, it's all on video, and the bad guys, the cops, judges, bailiffs, and sheriffs, they all play their part like it's out of a movie or something. You would think we scripted the whole thing, but it's real life. Go ahead and have a watch, and if it's been a while, have another look. I guarantee you'll notice things now that you didn't notice before. And the best part is that you're going to walk away feeling a renewed sense of your own power. You are the master of your destiny, and you will be free in your lifetime. Victimless Crime Spree.
From Feature Story News in San Francisco, I'm Ira Spitzer with a look back at some of the week's top stories. The U.S., Ukraine, and Russia held three-way talks for the first time since fighting began 4 years ago, with the White House describing the discussions as productive. But Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said it is still too early to draw conclusions on whether the negotiations will lead to a breakthrough. FSN's Nick Harper has more from Washington.
Well, this is a very significant step on the path to peace. For the very first time, all three countries are sitting down together. There's been plenty of talks between the US and Russia, the US and Ukraine, but we haven't seen Ukraine and Russia communicating directly. And after nearly 4 years of conflict, there is some real hope that we might now see some momentum towards achieving some sort of peace deal. There are some major sticking points at play. We heard from the Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov, and he maintained that Russia's position is still about achieving total control of the Donbass region, including territory that Ukraine is still holding on to.
European leaders praised the U.S. decision to scrap proposed tariffs on 8 transatlantic partners. It came after President Trump announced that the framework of a future deal had been reached on Greenland. But much remains unknown about the plan and what it means for the future of the semi-autonomous Danish territory. FSN's William Denzelo reports from Brussels.
President Trump's tariff threat prompted European leaders to schedule an emergency meeting at the European Council. That meeting, scheduled for Thursday evening here in the Belgian capital, is going ahead, despite the threat of tariffs seemingly being off the table. President Trump said that discussions will continue to ensure the Arctic region is secure from perceived threats posed by Russia and China. Reporting from The Telegraph suggests the US could be given sovereignty over parts of the Arctic island to set up military bases But officials across Europe maintain that such decisions must be made by Denmark and the people of Greenland. William Denslow, Brussels.
Torrential rains killed more than 100 people across southern Africa, forcing mass evacuations and rescue operations. FSN's Isaac Lucando reports.
Weeks of heavy rainfall have battered parts of southern Africa, overwhelming rivers and infrastructure in South Africa, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, and cutting off entire communities. Weather services have issued further alerts, raising fears of more flooding. The U.S. Famine Early Warning System says flooding is expected in at least 7 countries, possibly linked to La Niña, which often brings heavier rains. In recent years, the region has faced repeated extreme weather, exposing fragile infrastructure. Isaac Lucando, Dar es Salaam.
From Bureaus Worldwide, this is...
Yep, we still do email. Drop your email address in the entry box at freetalklive.com, and you'll be kept in the loop with Free Talk Live.
This is Free Talk Live. It's talk radio you control. You can give us a call, get your thoughts in this final segment of the Saturday night show. The phone number here is 603-283-6160. In the studio tonight, it's Stu,
Riley O'Bell,
and Mr. Penguin.
I think we'll go to the phones.
We have another call?
Another call.
Wow.
Lots of
It's been a busy
tonight.
night.
I know. This is crazy.
And let me express my gratitude for all the calls. It's fantastic. That is the whole point of this show, and we will just take callers all night if we have them. So, Paul in Arizona, you're on Free Talk Live. What's on your mind?
Oh, well, I've been listening to the last 20 minutes or so. It reminds me of a line from the movie 12 Angry Men with Henry Fonda. There's a line by Jack Warden who was talking about one of the other jurors that says, "It's like talking into a dead phone."
Yeah, right?
So I admire your tenacity in trying to deal with the other callers, shall we say.
Sure.
Yeah, I basically, we're talking about government. I think the New Hampshire is an independent state. Returning to its status as an independent state, I think that's a great idea.
Yeah,
I think so too.
That's why we're pushing the idea forward. We've been doing it for a decade, more than a decade now, and the whole idea of the Free State Project is it was from the very beginning of the Free State Project, I should say. The idea of independence was in sort of the founding documents. Now, Jason Soren sort of revised it out, but that was the idea. That was sort of the goal, the ultimate goal. It may not have been the focus necessarily. The focus was more at a state level of changing things somewhere in the United States. But long term, it was independence, because ultimately there's some things you cannot do at a state level. And it's not to say that we're not focused on a state level. We're very much focused at changing laws at a state level. But eventually, if you want to sort of prepare the groundwork for independence, you got to start, and you got to keep moving, and you got to keep the ideas going, and eventually you'll get support. And right now we've got a ton of support by comparison to any other state. Texas, you can't even get a single rep in Texas to support independence, and in New Hampshire we have 26 something reps that have already voted in favor of independence. So
well, apparently Texas has a lot more federal subsidies that they're afraid of, I guess. I don't know, but I think it's good to return back to the words of the Declaration of Independence, where it talks about what to be able to do things that independent states do.
Yeah.
I mean, that language is still 100% applicable today.
Yep. And the thing is, I think that people don't understand is that I don't think any of us are really against being part of the United States. It's that we want what was originally promised to us by when New Hampshire joined the United States. Originally, it was under this idea that it would be a loose collection of independent countries, and there would not be a powerful federal government. The United States was taken over. I think it was like 7 years later. It was taken over by the Federalists, and that wanted a powerful federal government. So we never agreed to this. We were sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Usurped into something that we never agreed to.
Right. Anyway, I have one other thing I want to mention. It's talking about freedom from government. One of the things that people are going to start having attention on these days, up until April 15th, is the Internal Revenue Service. And there's a gentleman by the name of Dave Champion who wrote a book called Income Tax Shattering the Myth. Now, this is not a paid plug. I just happen to be a fan of the guy, and I know that he spent a lot of time researching that book, and it's available at drreality.news. And there's one piece of information that I would invite your listeners to look up, and that is the purpose of a W-9 form. And that is you still there?
Yeah, we're still here.
Oh, okay. Just it went quiet for a second. I wasn't going to make sure.
Yeah, we're listening to what you have to say.
Yeah, okay. The W-9 form, okay. Now, in fact, I just recently went through a session with ChatGPT based on the information that Dave has unearthed. And, of course, ChatGPT seems to think that, no, he's wrong, And I have a conversation scheduled with him about a month and a half from now. He's that busy, but to debunk all that. But the bottom line is the W-9 form is used to declare that you are a withholding agent for a foreign, either person or foreign entity, so that the money that is being paid to you are declaring by signing a W-9 that that's not really your money, okay? And that really belongs to some foreign entity, which the government apparently doesn't care who that is. They just want somebody's signature on the dotted line that's going to pay the money. And this is probably the best kept secret in the federal tax code. And this explains a lot of why tax honesty people and people who call themselves tax patriots have been having such a hard time of it, because once the W-9 becomes part of the record, your rights are no longer involved. In other words, you've declared this isn't my money. So therefore, when they seize it, you don't get to enjoy all of the due process rights that you would have if it was your money. You've already declared it's not your money. It's a foreign person's money.
I want to stop you and say, I just want to stop and comment real quick. So I don't think it matters what the government says. They're going to do what they want, when they want, how they want, and they use every trick in the book to get it. So
and they kind of change the rules as they go along.
The only way you're going to be able to protect yourself is if you use cryptocurrency and you make sure that they don't have access to that.
I'm totally down with that.
And even there, it doesn't necessarily mean that they can't get access to it through tricks of their own. For example, they will they'll do things like, if they can identify the fact that they think you have that cryptocurrency, they can say, well, we won't release you, or we're going to sentence you to 10 years in a prison, but we're going to release you earlier than that we'll give you a day off for every $1 or something that you surrender to us. So it's through coercive means, basically, right? And so even when in order to protect yourself, you really need something like Monero, where they can't even know how much you have. But if you do take the right steps, and it's not easy, you can protect yourself from the federal government. And we've seen that in a number of cases. They want you to believe that cryptocurrency won't protect protect you. And it's true if you're using something like Bitcoin, but if you're using something more like Monero, they actually do have, and even with Bitcoin, they have trouble tracking it and tracing it. Like they want you to think that it's completely, transparent and everything, and it is to some degree, but it's not as, they have a harder time following it than you think.
You can use it privately.
Yeah.
It
takes
depends on when
extra
you
steps.
got it and who you got it from.
Yeah, well, so
That's
most people's problems is that they're connecting it to exchanges and they're presenting ID, and so the KYC, and so it does make it easier to trace and track that way when you do that. But the thing is that you shouldn't do those things, right? And then it becomes much more difficult.
Well, even having a wallet on your phone though is kind of giving up your own details. You would, like, if you really wanted to do Bitcoin anonymously, it would look like going to the public library and making a paper wallet address or even a brain wallet address so that nothing's ever written down or in physical form. You just remember the 12 words for your seed phrase, and then you have an address printed out that people could send to.
Well, so there's also there's a wallet, Samurai Wallet. Actually, there's a fork of Samurai Wallet now because they arrested the developers. But anyway, the point is Samurai Wallet works, and that's the reason they went after the developers, basically. So I think Samurai Wallet routes it through Tor, so it both anonymizes the IP address to make it even more difficult. But as long as you're not connecting it to some sort of KYC, exchange or something similar where they can get your information. And then you also use something like Samurai Wallet. Bitcoin still does. There is potentially more privacy to it, but really at the end of the day, in an optimal situation, you wouldn't even use Bitcoin. You use something like Monero, which has the privacy built in by default, and you'd use something like Feather Wallet probably on top of it, which also routes it through Tor, so it makes it much more difficult for them to track and trace and stuff like that.
Oh, I agree. I mean, all of those measures are and plus that avoids the liability of the fiat dollar. So even though Monero has not been appreciating the way Bitcoin has been, it hasn't been depreciating. It's like the dollar has been. So
Yeah, I mean, there's some great tools out there to accept Monero. There's something called, I'm trying to think what the name of the app is, or solution is, BTC server? Is it? Might be BTC server or something like that. Anyway, but yeah, so like you can, and I think it's got a plugin for Monero is what it is. So BTC stands for Bitcoin, but in any event, you can do your research, and basically you're basically in full control of your crypto. And basically what's happening there is you're not using a third party to accept the cryptocurrency. You're accepting it directly. So if somebody goes on to your website, you can check out and they can pay you directly, as opposed to going through basically what's effectively a bank or the banking system. The banking system of which Bitcoin, the reason Bitcoin existed in the first place is in response to the immoral activities of the banks and the federal government. So
that's the whole point. It's supposed to eliminate the third party, and this idea of selling it. Oh, we have to have it on an exchange. Well, that completely obviates the value of the crypto.
Right. I am not like people have this idea that like crypto people are all about like making money and profit and like greedy and stuff, and it's like no, not at all. It's not the real crypto. It's not. It's not. The real crypto people, the people who started it all, are about protecting you. They're about protecting your privacy. They're about giving you control and defending you from other threats and basically gangs. And the U.S. is basically a gang. It's not the only gang, but it's a gang. There's lots of other gangs in the world too. And what gang in particular might be targeting you is going to differ depending on where you are. There might be local gangs. There might be federal gangs. There's obviously so states, for example, cities, states, and federal government. And there's also in some places there's also a county or a parish as well. So it's yet another government basically. But there's also other types of gangs too, the more traditional, what people think of as gang more traditionally. So people maybe breaking into cars and stuff like that, or stealing cars, for example. That's another type of gang, and you may be a victim potentially of that type of gang too. And if you want to keep your values safe, right, your money safe, you may not be, that may not work. A bank may not do that for you. If you keep your own crypto in your own wallet and you do it correctly, you may have a bit more protection.
Yeah, well, according to the document most people sign when they open a bank account, it basically says when you give the bank the money, it's now their money. They get to decide what to do with it. You have a claim on it, but they can deny your claim.
Well, I think people
have to pay your claim.
And people are like, people don't really understand what they're doing when it comes to like banks and stuff. Like they think that their money is their money in the bank account, but you're right, it's not. If you look at what they did in Greece, they basically seized people's assets in their bank account. And it's like, and it's not, and people think, oh well, that can never happen here, but it actually has happened here. I'm trying to think what the example I'm thinking of is more. So my example is a little bit different, and it's not quite the same scenario exactly what happened here. But
they called it a bail-in rather than a bail-out. Yeah.
Well, yeah. So like one of the ways they do it is through inflation. Obviously, they steal your money. But another way they do it is they have done it in the past is more directly. I don't know what you know about, and I don't know if I have the dates right, but what somewhere 1920s maybe it was. They forced people to surrender their gold assets.
Oh yeah, that was the 1930s. That was under Roosevelt.
Right. So I'm not like, obviously, you could have ignored the government in that particular case maybe, and not surrendered your gold. But the point is they have taken people's value, and that wasn't even value held in a bank. It was when it's held in a bank, it's even easier for them to take, right? Than when they have to physically come and take it from you. So
yeah, well, then that all gets into the whole definition of government. It's like, when you say the president of the United States, okay, who is he the president of? Okay, he's the president of the government. All right, it's like, here's a scenario. Okay, let's say a bunch of people got together and they said, let's start a business. Okay, so they said, okay, well, let's put in some capital, and okay, let's have a business plan, and let's hire a bunch of people to work for us, and we'll open this business, and we'll have a board of directors, and we'll have a president of this company. We own the company, okay? So the president of the company presides over the administration of the company, all right? It doesn't preside over the owners of the company, okay? So if there's a rule that the company management says, well, all persons, in this company must abide by the following rule, or wear a certain uniform, or do a certain thing, or not do a certain thing, okay? That does not apply to the owners. That just applies to the people who work for the company. And this concept has completely been lost when it comes to the United States government, or any government.
Yeah, lots of silly notions floating around out there. People thinking things are what they aren't. But
anyway, lack of education, that's what it is. And I'm pleased that there are more people coming up with educational curriculums. The Ron Paul, Tom Woods has put together this Ron Paul curriculum, and there's a lot more independent information out there that kind of tells a more complete story, shall we say.
I think it's nice that we have a lot of people thinking differently than the traditional way that Americans have been thinking, that we need to have government and things like that. It's nice to have people saying, hey, wait a minute, let's come up with something different to think about.
You know what I like? I like the fact that people are moving to New Hampshire and actually getting together and changing things, as opposed to just having ideas and conversations. I mean, it's easy to have an idea or conversation, but to actually get up and move That's the thing. That's the thing that really amazes me. I didn't. If you'd asked me 2 decades ago, I would have been like, I'd have written it off and been like, yeah, it's highly unlikely. People talk all the time, but nobody ever does anything. And the fact that people are doing things, moving to New Hampshire and doing things, that's the thing that really impresses me.
Yeah, that's exciting to me as well. I'm one of the least collectivist people that I know, and I do not really join movements. But when selecting a place to go next in the adventure of life,
oh yeah,
the idea of living in a place surrounded by liberty-minded people,
it's not
appealing.
One.
So I can see it,
it's not one. It's not one group. It's like the Free State Project is sort of the I don't know if mantra is the right word, but it's sort of the overall idea. It's a concept.
And under the general umbrella of liberty.
Right. And if you actually move, you'll quickly realize there's like hundreds of groups here, and it's
many
like
subsets.
Subsets, and like loosely affiliated, maybe, but like to some degree or another. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the things about New Hampshire and the Free State Project. It's basically like it's decentralized. There is no one person in control. Our biggest leader is like maybe been imprisoned, but he's not even the official leader of the Free State Project. The Free State Project itself has sort of distanced itself from Ian. Just as an example, Jason Soren is like, he only moved here a couple of years ago, and it's like, okay, there's been people here for 20 years and you're just moving now. Like, I mean, yeah, it's like one of these things where it's like we've got all sorts of different different groups with generally the same idea, not the same ideas, all the same necessarily ideas, but the same general core idea of, hey, let's get together and work together to sort of change things. And it's not that everybody's working on the same thing, but we work on different people work together on different projects here and there, and we get little things changed. Like this year we got or maybe this was last year actually technically, but we got rid of inspections in New Hampshire, and that was thanks to a bunch of Free Staters getting together and pushing towards that goal. And maybe I didn't personally focus on work on that, but I did a little. I guess I assisted a little bit with that, but not in any significant way. So it's amazing what you can achieve when you have enough people in one place, all kind of backing each other.
Yeah, sort of like the loose confederation of colonies back in the 18th century.
Right?
Hey, let's all work together, but let's not have some big central authority. And then somebody had to screw that up.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, that's a crazy thing. It's like we're basically trying to do in New Hampshire what the original, the original idea for the United States was. It was just a loose collection of colonies or countries basically working together, on aims that were, agreeable to each other, not have a big central federal government. But the United States was taken over, and it was corrupted by federalists, and we ended up with a powerful federal government that's taken away our rights, and that's why things are so terrible today, and people just don't understand that.
Yep. Well, it's an educational thing. I mean, it's also a practical thing. So the fact that you folks are out there creating a model, not just having intellectual discussions.
Nope.
That's
we're putting ideas into practice, and those ideas are working out really well. At least for the people here in New Hampshire. Obviously, nobody's under the illusion that we can change the United States or change the world, but we can change one place, at least to a certain degree, and hopefully in time we can change it more massively, more substantially. But in the meantime, we've successfully sort of held back New Hampshire going in a direction that the rest of the United States is going. And, we're slowly pushing in the freedom direction. It's little baby steps right now, but in another decade from now, we'll probably be we'll see more massive changes. And I think we'll have a track record of, success in that department.
Well,
so
I think the contrast may become more apparent as things wend their way towards tyranny.
Oh yeah. I don't even leave New Hampshire anymore. I used to travel outside New Hampshire about 12 times a year to go to conferences and things. I won't even do that anymore. I go to 2 conferences a year now. And they're in New Hampshire. It's like I'm afraid to leave New Hampshire because the draconian state that is elsewhere. And it's not like right-wing states I'm afraid of or left-wing states. It's both. They're both draconian. I always like to say the left and the right are basically one and the same. They might put up a different advertisement, but they're doing the same stuff.
They are. They're getting this. They're getting the script from the same writer.
Yep, that's exactly it. And so I don't. New York's bad, but California, but so is so is Colorado or Montana or so many other states.
Yeah, or even Arizona. People are being arrested in Florida for their
Arizona,
speech.
Florida. Yeah, Florida's really terrible.
Threats of arrest for their speech.
Yeah, Florida might be the opposite of New York, but it's really, really terrible too. I mean, oh my gosh.
Yeah, go to Texas and try to smoke weed. See how free you are there.
Yeah. Right? Like,
they're not very free.
Yeah, it's you might have one freedom in one state and a different freedom in another, but at the end of the day, both sides want to take away your freedoms.
Yeah, that's about it.
Yep.
The only place that we're trying to give you more freedom is New Hampshire.
Yeah. Well, thank you for soldiering on the air. I don't know how many affiliates you've got, but
yeah,
we've got about 5 or 6 right now.
Yeah, it's a shame that there was a falling away, but
we're working. Riley's working on getting us some more affiliates back.
Yes.
The government has had a negative effect on us, but we're coming back.
Yep, we're still here. You can still give us a call. Not tonight though. You'll have to call tomorrow night. This has been Free Talk Live. Thank you so much for listening, and thanks Paul for the call tonight. That was a good one. Tune in tomorrow night. Peace.
This hour of Free Talk Live is brought to you by Dash Digital Cash. Dash is the cryptocurrency designed to be used for spending. Tired of the ever-inflating US dollar? You can live your life on Dash instead with some handy websites. BitRefill.com has been accepting Dash for years and has a ton of big-name retailers and brands including grocers, gas stations, phone refills, Amazon, and even prepaid MasterCards. Plus, many of their gift cards are available at a discount. But what about paying your bills? Spritz.finance can do that, and they can send dollars to your bank account in case you still need those for some reason. Dash is one of the oldest cryptocurrencies and is widely available on exchanges, including the decentralized Maya protocol, and in multi-crypto wallets. It's easy to get and use Dash. Start by learning more at Dash.org. Thanks to the Dash DAO for sending us 32 Dash per month to promote Dash on the air. Visit Dash.org to learn about Dash. Dash.org.
Eleutheromania. The insatiable desire for freedom. It's the new 3-song heavy metal